to yet another episode of Wick TV, a cross ideological space where we come together to talk about topics political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. Thank you all for being here. To my audience, I love you, each and every single one. To my guests, I appreciate you coming through and being here. It's a pretty heady topic today. We're going to be talking about forced institutionalization of the mentally ill. What is it? What does that mean? Is it something we should support? Back in the 80s, Reagan got rid of this largely, to a large extent. Has that been a good thing for America? Is it something that we should uh, turn back the clock on? I don't know. We're going to find out. I brought all these wonderful guests together to discuss it. Um, how you all doing, by the way? How's everyone going?
Doing great.
I'm
Good.
doing pretty good.
Beautiful, beautiful. Azzy, we can't see your pretty face yet. You gonna turn on the camera for us? Oh, well, hopefully he gets here soon. Okay, I guess we'll start then with first time guest on my show, Rebecca right now. Yeah, tell people who you are and what are your thoughts, and we'll just kind of go around. Go ahead.
Sure. I'm a writer and a Twitter person. Um, I write romance and young adult fiction, both traditionally published and on Wattpad. You can find me pretty much on all my socials is Rebecca right now. Did you want me to read my opening statement?
Go for it.
Excellent. Okay. So the word institutionalization has two meanings, the way I see it. One is kind of the platonic form, the most perfect way that the concept could play out, decoupled from real life politics, logistics, and technicalities. There's not much to argue against there. Of course, there should be facilities where people suffering poor mental health can receive care. In fact, inpatient mental health care is critical and more beds need to be made available. When I say I'm against institutionalization, I mean the way that it plays out in the real world. I mean the abuse, state violence, deprivation of freedom, and the segregation of mentally ill people from the rest of society. The transition from institutions to community mental health care has never been fully realized. So many lack the access to basic care that could prevent them becoming a victim of institutionalization today. Confining people against their will is unfortunately a necessary evil, but one that would happen much less often if the process of deinstitutionalization had actually happened properly.
Okay, we'll get into in the opening. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing thoughts, and we'll see how it goes. Azzy, you here yet? No. Great. Awesome. Stardust, what you got for us?
Yeah. So the way that I see this, I'm somebody who's had dealt with a lot of very severely mentally ill people in my life. And unfortunately, when you're dealing with people who are severely mentally ill, they don't want to, even with psychiatric intervention, they don't want to take their medication. When they do take their medication, as soon as they start feeling good again, they start wanting to not take their medication. They have a distrust in general. This is part of the illness for anybody who could give them help. And it's just a really, really hard thing to deal with. While, we want everybody to have the freedom to their own like autonomy and agency, there are unfortunately cases where you are leaving these people who are completely incapable of taking care of themselves. They're completely incapable of functioning in society, and because you can't forcefully institutionalize them, they end up being either homeless or being kind of an obstacle in other people's lives. And anybody can tell you, like, when it comes to taking care of severely mentally ill people, it is not as easy as it looks, right? Unfortunately, depending on the illness that they have, they can be very violent. They can act out. They can do things that make your life very hard and make life very hard for your neighbors. Um, that being said, with deinstitutionalization, um, I don't know that there's a way we can put the cat back in the bag. I think that the way that we did deinstitutionalization was a horrible way of doing it. We didn't like put in any like ways of transitioning these people into a normal life. We didn't have any ways of these people going and seeking help that were outside of these institutions, and it was horrible. But with that being said, these state hospitals where a lot of this institutionalization was taking place have been shut down. And to reopen state hospitals would be a huge cost. I don't see anybody supporting that. And then supporting the institutionalization of these people would also be an additional cost that I don't see the average person in the population willing to have their taxes go towards. So well, I think it's something that shouldn't have happened. Maybe we should have worked on improving the institutions and the institutionalization in the hospitals and the care. Unfortunately, we didn't do that. We just went forward with releasing all these people, and yeah, it just had terrible effects. And I don't think there's a way we can reverse that, but maybe
Okay.
there's a way that we can alleviate the issue. As you know, we can't forcefully institutionalize anybody unless they are a threat to themselves or other people around them. But maybe there's a way we can incentivize people to seek out mental care, mental health care through subsidies and things like that.
Yeah, thank you. We'll get into it in the open, I'm sure. I'm sure people will have all sorts of thoughts. Azzy, are you back yet? Oh, this wonderful, gang. This will be wonderful. Thank you, Azzy, for being here. I hope you get those issues resolved. We're gonna go to Elder Jazzy next. Go ahead.
Okay. So, say for short term care facilities and people who actually are so mentally unwell that they break the law, which I think the law would apply to everybody the same, I think that it is not just morally bad to put these people away, but it is impossible to do so in a safe and healthy way. If you look at the Stanford prison experiments, we are shown what happens when one group of people have no power and the other group of people have a tremendous amount of power. You don't have to look far into like nursing homes to see the kinds of abuse that happens to people who actually can speak out to other people, but are just generally disregarded for the most part. But in these kinds of institutions, we've not only been shown by Nellie Bly, who went undercover in the United States, and more recently, Alan Haslam in the UK, that abuse is rampant. It is part of human nature to abuse power when there are people that have zero power versus people that have ultimate authority over you. These are the people that we need to care about the most. They require the most care, and I think it's society's job to make sure that we're doing everything we can to make sure that we're not looking the other way when it comes to how we're going to treat the people that are the most vulnerable. Um,
Okay.
oh,
Anything else? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut
oh
you off.
yeah, to lock them away and keep them out of sight like this is nothing more than a social form of eugenics. We're just going to say that we don't want any of these people in society. We're going to completely remove them and act as though they do not exist. And I think that's terrible.
Well, thank you. We'll get into it as we go. Azzy, I see you there. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, yes. Go ahead. What do you got for us?
So I think so the is there a question or should I just go off from the like
What are your opening
conversation?
thoughts on institutionalization of the mentally ill, man?
I think that there should be a limit on the institutionalization. In fact, it should be deinstitutionalized because we can look at other examples of things being institutionalized and then becoming profit margin focused in terms of, for instance, healthcare, in terms of education, in terms of the prison system. When you start to become when it becomes privatized and institutionalized, it's not about the welfare of the individual at that point. It's just about making sure there's oh, does this make enough money? Otherwise, we're gonna pull resources from it, and then it becomes privatized, where people will just do things purposefully, like what Drazi was talking about. They'll just lock people up, you know, just because so they can get the resources and just so they can make money from it.
Okay.
So it shouldn't. There's a limit to it because it there's still good in the system being a part of it, but it should be more community oriented. Um, so we need a lot more facilities on the community level.
Okay, we'll get into it in the open, I'm sure. Before we get to Doobie, $10 from Mudit Agarwal to say economies of scale would suggest that having a cluster of mentally ill people at one place will be a better use of resources and more efficient in helping than having those patients spread out. So we'll see how it goes. Doobie, what are your thoughts on this? Go ahead.
Um, well, I think that the Jordan Neely thing that happened recently is kind of a really good microcosm for what the issue is in a lot of places. His family had said that he'd been dealing with severe mental illness for years. He'd actually been mandated like mental health treatment or mental rehabilitation by a court as part of a police sentence for a previous assault, and he was able to just walk out because he decided that he didn't want to do it anymore. And as a result, he went around causing more trouble, and now he's dead. There are many, many more cases like this. There are people who've given like interviews recently after the Jordan Neely situation, talking about how they need to watch their family members waste away on the streets because they refuse to get help, because they refuse to get therapy, they refuse to do the medication. And given that these people are severely mentally ill, they're probably not in a place where they can decide or understand what's best for them, right? So I think it's true that these are some of the most vulnerable people in our society, but I think that just means that we have a much greater responsibility to them. And if there are situations where there's abuse or corruption in the mental hospitals, I think you need to deal with that. I don't think it makes sense to say, oh, well, hey, there are bad people in some of these places. So we just can't help any of these people and let them stay on the street and die. And you can point to community programs and blah, blah, blah. But we've seen the results of that. The result is people living on the street, starving to death, freezing to death, killing people, killing themselves as a result of what I think is misplaced. I don't know. I think this is one of those things where like the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and we have a lot of people who want to do the good thing, but not jailing these people or imprisoning these people, quote unquote, and they're actually just harming them.
Okay, and with that, we'll open it up. So what do we
Yeah.
think? Oh, go ahead.
I immediately would like to say I agree with Doobie on this. I think that unless you have lived with mentally ill people, severely mentally ill people, and multiple of them, to understand how hard it is to take care of them, this idea that institutionalization is such a horrible thing to do to them is ridiculous. These are people again. If you've I have lived in a house with multiple incredibly mentally ill people, right? Paranoid, schizophrenics, whatever, right? And that when you cannot predict when they're going to have a blow up. You cannot predict when they are going to get violent. You cannot predict when their blow up is going to be violent. It could just be a blow up where they're screaming, or it could be a blow up where they're throwing things at you. So people don't understand. Yes, you want people to have autonomy, but when it's somebody who cannot function in society, who cannot bathe themselves, who cannot take care of themselves, who cannot reason properly, who has no way of conserving their money and using it in a wise manner to take care of themselves, yes, at a certain point you do need to take their agency away from them and treat them until they are able to reason them again. And then you'd never know, because a lot of the times, again, when people are mentally ill, they start feeling better after medication, they stop taking their medication, and then you go into the same cycle again. So if you want to leave them, if you want to say, oh no, we shouldn't institutionalize anybody. I mean, sure, we can say that. We've already let the cat out of the bag and we fucked ourselves because we have a whole bunch of like a huge homeless population. But yeah, that's that. Those are my thoughts.
Stardust, I think that's a really interesting rant that you just went on. If you had done that when asylums were still open, you may have very well ended up in one for being an unruly woman, or perhaps for not smiling enough. One of the big problems with putting people in these institutions is once you're in, you can't get out. And society at different points in time have had different ways of defining what is mentally ill. I think I've heard plenty of people say that Doobie's mentally ill for some of the things that he's said online. I know I've heard this. So,
There's a
there,
massive difference between somebody who says things that are like a little bit out there, somebody who maybe acts a bit unruly, versus somebody who is violent, somebody who has violent outbursts.
People were in these asylums for not wanting to have sex with their husband.
Yeah, and then I'm not
Yeah, but
disagreeing that that's shitty, right? And we should improve that, but that doesn't mean that we don't also look at the very real reality of people who are so severely mentally ill that they are unable to function in society and unable to function with other people.
yeah, this
Well, you
is
could
like
say the
saying we
same. You
shouldn't
could
have
say the
jails.
same.
We shouldn't have jails because sometimes an innocent person could go to prison. Like it's ridiculous. Of course,
No,
we should still have jails. What you do there
No,
is you don't get rid of the entire institution. You deal with the corruption. You deal with the problems in the system.
jails
well,
are
that's the
different.
problem, man. Yeah, that's the problem, right? And that's why I was like, that's why I brought up initially about how we're gonna, if we institutionalize this, we're gonna end up comparing this to prisons and education, where it's no longer about the people. It's just about the rest. It's not about the person who has the problem. It's about everybody else who can't deal with the person who has the problem, and they can't
Based.
function well enough to be high functioning enough. Because in my own opinion, I believe everybody is has some type of issue. You know, it's like every once in somebody's life, everybody comes into like a contact with somebody who has a mental health issue, or they themselves will have a mental health issue. That doesn't mean they get institutionalized. You know, even in the
Yeah, but
classroom, even in the
again,
Nobody's
classroom, you have to
suggesting
deal
that.
with even with the
there's a
class. I'm
huge
sure. I'm
difference
sure you're
between
not. I'm
somebody
sure
who's
you're not. I'm
violent.
sure you're not.
There's okay,
But
there's a huge
but
difference between somebody who
according
is
to
mentally ill and functional in
hold on. Let
society
me let my
versus somebody
plane. Let
who's
me let my
violent.
plane. I understand, but there's a lot of people who are violent. That doesn't mean they need to be institutionalized.
Yes, it does. If they can't function in society, yes, it does. If they're violent towards their own children, yes, it does.
What about people that make a mistake? Once you are in these institutions, it is nearly impossible to get out. Once you've been branded
I'm
as
not
mentally
talking about people who
unstable,
make
and
mistakes.
hang on,
With
but
this reasoning,
that's not how it
we may as
works.
well not have laws, guys, because somebody in power is going to abuse these laws and do something bad
No,
with them.
if
We're
you
not even
break a
talking about
law
corruption.
and you
We're
go to
talking
jail, you get
about
out. You don't get out of
yeah.
these asylums. Acting sane or doing things that a normal sane person would do is seen as acting
That's
sane,
why
and it works
we need
against
to
you.
that's why we need to we need to like reform we needed to reform these institutions rather than completely disbanding them altogether because now,
Yeah, but you
you
can't
know,
just medicate narcissism and violent behavior away. That stuff doesn't go
you
away.
can medicate
But you can
I
some
mean, you
cases. You
you
can,
can
absolutely
You
can.
medicate
but
can.
some
I want.
some
No,
I
you
want
substances,
to.
cannot.
You
medicate
Hey, I want
some.
to.
absolutely
Hey,
can.
hey,
No, you
hey,
No,
hey,
cannot.
no,
hey,
It's
fuck
hey,
not
no,
the
it just
hey.
illnesses. Yes,
it
you
just
can
inhibits the
medicate things.
Stop, or
behavior.
You
I will
medicate mental
stop
illness.
you. We can't all go at the same time. No one can hear you. I want to give space to Rebecca a little bit. She has something to say, and then we'll go back to. I guess Doobie really wants in, so that's what we'll do.
How
I
can you
was
tell
gonna
that?
say
It's his
Drazi is
topic.
completely right because there actually have been experiments where people have put themselves in the position to be put into institutions, and these are totally sane people. They say the right things to get in, and they cannot get out. Like this has been done. There was the Rosenhan experiment was one. I've read a couple of books on these, and it's actually like really, really scary. People get into them to see what they're like, and they literally cannot get out. And I just want to say that I think it's really funny that Doobie brought up prisons because that actually is a reason to like abolish prisons. The fact that
Oh
innocent people
God,
do
so
end
you're
up
just
in prisons,
retarded.
like
Okay.
that is actually like a good
You mean reform
point there.
prisons? You mean reform prisons?
Yeah, we should have no prisons ever, no jails, and murderers, rapists on
That's
the
an
street all
argument.
the time.
You say
Yeah,
that like
you're an
it's
idiot
funny,
if you
but
think
that's an
that.
argument.
I
Yeah,
Yeah,
think
you're an
that's an
idiot
argument
if
for
you
another
I
think
didn't
that's
say
dumb.
that
time.
was my opinion. I said that's an argument
Okay,
that people make
Well,
we
it's
that
an argument
case.
that stupid
hey,
people have.
we
Like,
we
I
can
don't think
have
any of
that
you are
argument.
stupid.
We can have
you
I
that
hope
guys
none
argument
of
at
you are
some
stupid.
point, but that argument's not
relax, Doobie,
today.
or we're gonna
So
have to
I'm
lock
very
you up.
relaxed. Look, okay, I think what you guys are doing is kind of not kind of. I think you're definitely minimizing what we're actually talking about when we say like severely mentally ill. We're not talking about someone who gets mad now and then, or someone who's neurotic or gets anxious. We're talking about somebody who thinks that the walls are screaming at them, or thinks that their loved ones are
Mhm.
demons and trying to rip their skin off. Right? These people exist, and I don't think it's fair to say, "Hey, this is just on the family and community," who in many cases are barely scraping by already. Right? It's not fair to say, "Hey, yeah, that's your family member. I know that he thinks the dogs are telling him to kill people. Fuck it, deal with it." That's not fair, right? This is a societal issue, so I think we need to deal with it as a society, and this is one way that we come together as a community and we deal with it. We put these people somewhere where they can be taken care of, medicated, and if their illness can be treated and they can get back to like being a functioning member of society, you guide them toward that path. And again, if there are issues of corruption or abuse, there are ways to deal with it. You can have we have the the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, whatever the fuck. You can have something serious similar to for this. Proactive people who go in and make sure that there are no cases of abuse. If family members think someone's being abused or shouldn't be in there, they can have someone go and check it out. We can have public attorneys go in there and make sure that everybody who's in there is supposed to be there, and make sure that these doctors are giving good reasons for why they're keeping these people. I think that all those issues can be dealt with.
You just offered a false dichotomy. It's either we do nothing different whatsoever
What are you
now.
suggesting?
Well, how about
Community healthcare.
we increase funding to mental
tomorrow,
health?
Okay,
Do you want me to answer
does
the
that
question?
mean?
Well, again,
I-
do not want
You're just
people
gonna say
to-
reform, increase funding. What the fuck does that mean?
You not letting me say it. So how can I
Rob is
tell
yelling over
you?
the banana, man. It's hard to tell whose turn it is.
Do you
Well,
want an
it's
answer? Or
Elder
no?
John's
Reform,
turn.
increase
First of all-
funding, community
all right, okay.
healthcare. Like, give specifics. What the fuck?
We-
So my uncle tomorrow starts thinking the walls are telling him to murder people, and nobody can afford to fucking get his medication. And if we do get his medication, he doesn't want to fucking take it. What do
Well,
we
you
do?
can afford. You get Medicaid, or
If
that's
he
fine, a
doesn't
lot
want to
of
take
people-
it, which is the
That's not
case
the
in a lot of
point,
these cases,
Okay, but
a lot of
no,
these
no, you
cases,
moved the
they
goalpost.
refuse to
You
take
moved
it.
Wait a
You moved the
fucking
goalpost.
minute.
No, please,
I already
listen.
told
So in a
you.
lot of
Wait a
cases,
minute.
it-
Okay,
You moved
but-
you
it real
deal
quick.
with a
You
mentally
thought I
ill
didn't get
person.
this.
They don't want to take their fucking medication. Even if
Jordan
you're getting
Neely-
their medication, they don't
Jordan
want to
Neely
take
literally
it.
refused to
stop,
take his medication.
Stop. A question for Rebecca, Azzy, and Elder Drazi. What happens, right? So I'll give you a personal story. This happened just last night, literally just last night. After I was done on Stardust stream, I got a phone call, and I dealt with this in my family, right? My uncle went to the emergency room. We had tried to convince him for days to go. He was suffering. He didn't want to go, but eventually we convinced him to go. He had some issues. Like, for full disclosure, my uncle is mentally ill. He has paranoid schizophrenia. He's in a bad space, right? So we finally got him there. He was there for a day. Then he had a disagreement with the doctor, a disagreement with my mother, and decided he was going to check himself out. There's nothing we could do to stop him. He just left, right? What do we do in those situations when someone who needs help but refuses to get it? Do we just let them roam the streets? Like, what is your solution here?
I'll go last.
Okay, so part of the solution to this is preventative. If we offer mental health services to people starting at the youngest ages and all the way up, not only would that decrease stigma, but for the people that already have these issues, like your uncle, we can provide the same kind of mental health treatment that we would provide in an institution by
He
the same way
doesn't want
people
to.
have.
He
Sure,
doesn't want it.
sure, but people in
He's
those
like, he won't
institutions
refuse. They'll
make
say
you,
no.
right? Yeah, I would say that you can send somebody to the home to enforce the same kinds of
He
practices
lives in
we would
like
like to
he
see.
okay. He literally lives in the woods. He'll come to my mom's house when it's cold, but he refuses to stay there. He does not live any like where are we going to
Oh.
send him to the woods?
Then in the beginning of this, like I said, short-term care facilities are fine by me. You get people on medication, you get them medicated, and then you set them up with a worker
And then they
that
stop
will meet with
taking it
them
and they feel
regularly.
better.
That's why you set them up with a worker that will meet them regularly. If there's concern that
it doesn't
medication
matter.
isn't
They
being
still
taken,
stop
then
taking
you
it
can.
anyway.
If there's a concern of that, you can drug test them to make sure that the drugs are in their system, and if not, you could administer
And
the
then what?
drugs.
So you hold them down and you force
Hold on,
feed
let
them
him
the
finish,
drugs?
No, you
man,
can
'cause
give
there's
you
two
can
other
give them
people
an
who wanna-
I just want to be
injection.
clear about what he's suggesting. Are you suggesting that we might need to force them to take the medication if they're not taking it?
I'm suggesting the same thing that you would suggest happens in an institution, but it happens to them in a healthy way where we're not ostracizing them from society. How are people supposed to get better when everybody around them are insane? When people are in prison for 20 years and they come out into the rest of the world, they have a very hard time adapting and adjusting. I had pretty severe mental health issues when I was younger. If I was in a building away
I
from the rest of
see.
society for that entire time, I would not have been able to adjust and been able to have a normal life.
I think this is so first off, I think your idea is really stupid because the guy could just not show up, right? You say, oh yeah, he's out of the short-term care place now. He has a worker. He's gonna meet up with a worker. What the fuck? What if he just doesn't show up? He doesn't want
It's
to.
called autonomy.
Show
Are you
up
gonna?
where?
Are you
They
gonna?
show up to you. They
This
come
is
to
the
you.
issue.
No.
This is
That's-
this
that's
is
a-
the
that's a
issue.
silly- that's a
This is the
silly
issue.
response to a silly.
No, it is not.
Yeah,
No,
it's
it
a
is
silly
not.
response because that's the
How?
autonomy that kicks in.
They don't
You
have
can
autonomy.
choose not to. Yes, they
See,
Yeah,
you
well
guys are
then
can.
he
Yes, they
speaking
chooses
as
then
if
can.
he
we're.
chooses
You
to
guys are
not take his
speaking. You
medication
guys
and
are
They're
speaking.
still human. Last time I checked, they're not
Okay, but you guys are
vegetables.
yeah, okay,
speaking as
Azzy,
if.
here's the
Wait,
thing.
sorry,
Yes,
just
he
one second,
chooses to
please.
not take his medication, but then
No, not one
he gets
second. Elder
violent.
didn't even finish, so I'm not even. I'm not gonna.
Okay,
You
that's
can't
fine.
ask
So,
for.
but
You
you
can't
guys are
ask for
speaking.
autonomy
You
if
guys
you're
are
not gonna offer
speaking. You guys are
autonomy.
speaking as if we are taking the
We
agency away.
institutionalize you, doobie.
The reality is, we're not taking the agency away. Their mental illness is taking the agency away. Right? And what we're doing is trying to guide them toward a path where they can get it back. If that requires us to force them onto that path, because the agency has been taken, they don't know what's best for themselves. They can't do it themselves. Right? I think that's what we need to do.
Well, we're talking about Wick's example in
Well,
specifically, and
Yeah,
they went to the doctor, and
Wick's uncle
they
doesn't have
went to the
autonomy like you
they
do.
went to the doctor, and well, he doesn't he can't he can't operate in the way I do. This is just a
He is
functional issue.
severely
This is a
mentally
functional issue.
ill.
But
It's not just a functional issue. This is what I mean.
he's
You're like
functional.
downplaying what's
He's
actually
function.
happening.
No, stop. He's functional enough to say yes or no, and he's been deemed functional enough to have his autonomy. If the doctor thought it was really a problem, they would have him institutionalized.
They
He walks
can't.
out.
They
Will just
can't
said he walks
actually.
out, and
They
this is what Jordan
well,
Neely did. Jordan had
Well,
court
well, just
mandated.
real
you need to
quick,
blame.
Jordan
Well, then
Neely
you now
had a
need to
court
blame the system or
mandated
the institution.
I
mental
want
This is what we're
institutionalization,
to
talking
and he
about.
walked out. He
the
I
didn't. He
want
don't
the
to
want to say
like
so.
doctor.
He
here's
walked
the
out.
problem. Here's the issue. Here's the issue. Okay, I want to give Elder Drazi a chance to finish, right? And then I want to go to Rebecca, and then I want to go to Azzy. But just real quick, we cannot like this was against the doctor's wishes. The doctor said no, we don't want you to go out, but they could not hold him unless we uh
Sedate him.
Well,
well,
unless he
I
was
mean, the
oppressed,
options
right?
we have, right, are because he has been violent before, right? We could call the cops and send him to prison, but we don't want to do that, right? Like, that is, prison isn't going to be a good space for him. So I guess again, the question remains someone who does not cooperate, who needs help, what do we do? So Elder you can finish, be brief. Then I want to go to Rebecca, then Azzy, and then Stardust and Doobie can respond. So go ahead.
The most vulnerable people of ours to be in a situation which is worse than prison. Nellie Bly said she would rather be a murderer than be put into one of these institutions because at least murderers have a chance of being set free. Once you're in, you're in. So if he went to prison, this would be bad for him. But these places are bad as well. There's every kind of abuse imaginable. There's sexual abuse. There's physical abuse. There's just there's no reason why we can't do the same things and meet them where they're at instead of locking them away from everybody.
I want to go to Rebecca. Go ahead.
First of all, I'm sorry to hear that. I have a family member who is often in a similar situation. She's also a paranoid schizophrenic and has periods where she's not rational and ends up in hospitals for short stays. And we're very lucky that she believes her medication works. Like, she believes in being in her medication. So when she's in a good space, she will take it. But unfortunately, at a certain point, there isn't really anything you can do. You have to continue to be a supportive person when you can, and a family member, and uphold your obligations that way. And like, personally, always come back to that person, always be there for that person, and never let them down if you can avoid it. But it's a tough spot to be in.
Yeah. So
Fair.
let them die out on the fucking street.
Well, I want to get to Ozzy first, but then you guys can respond. I promise. But I want to get through them, and then we can you can say what you need to say. Ozzy,
I don't know
briefly,
if
please.
Doobie he can control himself. I think he needs to be institutionalized.
I think
But
your positions leave people dying. I think you guys are actively killing people right now.
to my point in the beginning, these institutions, the state should step in just to support the community mental health facilities. Just like you tend to see As the institutions get larger, it's harder to maintain, and then people start to slip through the cracks. Training isn't done properly. Inhumane things can go unchecked. Even people can make slight mistakes and give people you get just taking terms to hospital. Somebody doesn't wash their hands, and all of a sudden somebody gets an infection, and all of a sudden they're dying where they should be saved. Well, in smaller facilities, people are a lot more humane. They have a lot more etiquette. They care a lot more because number one, it's their facility. And number two, they wanted to work in this job to begin with. It's not just a financial incentive. So you tend to see in community based centers, you get the right people for the right job, and the state should just support them to make sure they have all the tools necessary. Now, if somebody doesn't want to, if somebody is beyond function, beyond functioning, all right, and they can't support
What does
themselves,
that
then
mean?
you
Hold on. What does
be
that mean to you
basically
beyond functioning?
institutionalized. As in, yeah, they say that they're all right, but they're not all right. When they go out into the
Oh,
society,
my
they don't
uncle?
act like you said, like your uncle. I've had people in my family who's like done like they had like neurodivergency, and that would bleed into their hormones,
This
and
isn't
they would
neurodivergency, though. This is something a bit
it's
more
just
extreme, right?
well, yeah, it's extreme, mental illness, right? But what I'm saying, I'm not comparing my situation to yours. I'm just saying you can deal
Sure.
with somebody, and these things can fluctuate in a way where we can't control. So yeah, they need to go get help. So yeah, at that point, if they think they're all right, but they're not all right, yeah, they should be institutionalized. But it should be in a
Okay.
community center.
Okay. Now, Stardust and Doobie can respond to those if they'd like.
Yeah. So with this community center bullshit, I'm sorry, like more than half of the people are just not going to show up. And then if your solution is to, oh, let's have a social worker go out and administer the medication. Have you ever dealt with a 6 foot, man, over 200 pounds trying to give him his medication? It's not that easy. You're going to need like a whole team of people to administer his medication, especially if you're going out there and you're dealing with somebody who is so violently ill, like quite literally they're violent, and they think that that you're from the government to get them, or that they think that you are part of the neighbors who are screaming at them, etc., etc. On the topic of preventative care for mental illness, it won't do shit when they develop mental illness, even if there's no stigma around mental illness, because for a lot of people who are sick, their mental illness makes them not want to take their medication. As soon as they start feeling better after taking their medication, they're like, I'm better now. I don't want to take my medication. So this is not these are not solutions to this problem, that I can see having any effect long term. A lot of the times in these institutions, like people don't realize you are dealing with people who are, very large. These are not frail people necessarily. They come in all sorts of shapes and sizes, and some of them are very strong, and some of them require a team of people to handle them.
Wait, hold on. As he's having trouble. But yeah, if you guys want to respond to that, please, by all means, right?
Yeah, I think everything she said is correct, and I think
Mm.
that the reality that I think you guys are having trouble like confronting, in my opinion, is so you say, oh well, I don't see a reason anything that is done in an institution can't be done at home or where the person is, even if they're out in the woods. The reality is these
I
people
didn't say
move.
that.
I think you did. You said you said they can go where they are. So if they're in the woods, they go to the woods. That's what you
I
said.
said provide funding to get them in a home, but
Okay, but what if the person doesn't want to be in a home, which is the case with a lot of these people, which is why they're on the street wandering around. Their families don't know where the fuck they are. Right, and that's reality. It's the family can't always be there. These are people who have their own lives, who are trying to make ends meet, a lot of time barely scraping by themselves. So saying to them, hey, yeah, we know you have this uncle or this cousin or whoever who has severe mental illness, who's on the streets right now, talking to the floor, shitting in corners, probably being raped, probably being assaulted, probably having shit thrown on them all the time. Yeah, well, that's your issue because that's your family member. So just be there for them. Don't let them down. That's fucking ridiculous. I think that's disgusting. The reality is, this is, like I said, a communal issue, a societal issue. We need to deal with it as a community. And I think that means we're coming together and saying, hey, these people need our help. It's not fair to tell the family to deal with it. So we need to deal with it as a community and understand that these people do not have agency in the way that you guys are thinking. These people are severely mentally ill, so they can't make decisions in the way that you can. Right? I think that maybe some of you are relating it to like your own past experience where you might have dealt with mental illness. I don't think it was, I hope it wasn't anywhere near as severe as what we're talking about right now. What Jordan Neely was dealing with, what Wick's uncle is dealing with, what some of my family members have dealt with. What we're
And
talking about severely mentally ill.
yeah, and if I can just also interject here, I've had like multiple people that I've dealt with very intimately that have severe mental illness, and when what Doobie is saying is absolutely correct. They do not have the same agency as you think that they do. One of the people that I dealt with, who's very close to me, was going through basically a complete decompensation mentally, right? And um he had like bipolar disorder, but like he was just having a full-on meltdown. And it was like dealing with somebody who had dementia. He could not remember from like 10 minutes like to the next. He could not remember like the things that we had already just talked about. I would be on the phone with him for like 4 hours trying to get him to write down everything because he would not remember a single thing. And then he would go to his doctor and say all the wrong stuff. And then the next day, again, 4 hours on the phone with him, telling him to write things down, telling him like saying, "Hey, we talked about this yesterday. Do you remember? No, you don't remember. Okay, let's go over this again." It truly is. You think that they have agency. Somebody like that who can't even like remember from one moment to the next. That is not the type of agency you think that they have.
There's been a lot
Yeah,
of
we can
claims
go
about the
back.
kinds of agency we think they
Yeah.
have, which is kind of weird to me. I don't think me or Ozzy, and actually, I'm not 100% sure where you stand, Rebecca. I thought you said in the beginning that you were for the institutionalization, but you've made a lot of arguments against
She
it.
said community. She
No.
said community.
Yeah, I'm more in favor of community-based,
Facilities.
Okay.
mostly outpatient and some inpatient. But yeah, I think I agree with you. I think it's weird that they're ascribing us to think that these people have ultimate agency, which
When
no.
you guys just said they had the autonomy to choose not to do things, what the fuck are you talking about then? If you
I
don't, if
mean
you
that
don't
they
mean that
have
they can make their own decision.
the human. I mean that they have the human dignity not to be forcibly confined and subject to violence from the state. That's what I mean.
Yeah. What
Yeah,
you're
but they
saying
may
is
not.
that
This
Yeah, there's
is
a difference
so.
between
So it is
autonomy
what
and
we thought it was.
agency.
But their families
No, no,
have
no,
to
no, no,
deal
no,
with violence
no.
from them, so that's
you've made my
Yeah,
life inconvenient,
that's
therefore I
part of
want you locked
the.
away forever, and I don't want to deal with
When
you.
you have
Yeah,
when
that
you have a
guy.
baby and the baby punches you in the face, you still got to deal
is
with it.
very different from a baby than dealing with a full-grown adult
I'm
who
not
who may
saying
be
it's the
stronger
same,
than
but
you, who
when
may
you
be
have a
stronger
family
than
member,
you, who may be older than you, who may have access to
Who
weapons.
may think the
Like this
medication
is
is
very
literally
different.
poison, like
I'm not
or
making a.
or
I'm
bugs that you're
not.
making them eat.
I'm
Nothing
not
that you're
trying
saying
to.
stops by going into
Yeah,
an institution.
yeah,
It's
it
just more
doesn't.
No.
force
That's
and less
Yeah.
kindness. That's
okay,
it.
but if they
And
There
need
and the
if they need
person
the
Yeah.
and the
force
person.
to
Yeah,
start
yeah,
taking the
the
medications, then you
person.
need to do it.
No, because you're not. It's no longer you getting punched. It's the care. It's the person who's working the job getting punched now. Except
Yeah,
they're
it's
now
people who've
trained to
been
deal
trained
with
to
it.
deal with this. They have
Yeah,
okay. If they're
yeah.
in these institutions, they should be trained. Obviously, if you're saying that they haven't been in the past, well, I'm saying in the future they should be trained. Obviously, there's needed for reform. If there's been corruption, I don't like corruption. Obviously, that would need to be addressed. Like
You're hand
you guys
waving
are
all
But
these
just.
those are
problems away
those
by
neither
are
do
saying they
we
should
the
get rid
neither
of these
based
do we
upon
nor
problems.
I.
histor.
Yeah,
I want to
That's
give
why
it.
no, no, no.
I
There's
want
a
to toss it.
move.
I want to toss it to Eldrazi. I know as you finish up, but after Azzy, I want to toss it to Eldrazi. I want to, because he keeps getting interrupted, and I want to hear him get his whole argument out before we. I know we want to pounce on it, but I want to hear it, right?
Yeah, the reason why we move from institutionalization to deinstitutionalization is because of historical data that we have between the 60s and 70s. People were it was just not right for the patients. Inpatient care was not the way it should have been, and because that's just the nature of the beast. When it gets too big, it's hard to take care of. That's why you have smaller and multiple facilities. That it's better to be localized.
Based.
And properly funded. That's important
Oh,
because
yeah.
institutions were good for storehousing mentally ill people away from society so we didn't have to deal with them, but they were also expensive, and that's why they were dismantled. So
Well, nobody's suggesting
unfortunately,
that.
this stuff is
Which is
expensive.
another point I want to get into. Like
No,
you're all
what
Nobody's
I'm
right.
saying is
suggesting.
that
You guys
any
are
amount of
attacking
care is going to be
strawmen.
expensive, and people don't like
What's
high
wrong, man?
costs.
No, we're
So
arguing against institutionalization.
I think since the your policies or your perspective has been the norm. We've seen all these people on the streets killing themselves and each other,
Since when? What
attacking
norm?
okay, this norm where hey that we can't take their autonomy away. We can't force them to be in these institutions. If they want to walk out, we just need to let them walk out because it's their
Wait, that's
autonomy.
not what we're arguing, though.
That is what you're arguing.
No, I
It
just
is
said
literally
that
what,
because
okay, stop, please
yeah,
stop.
that's
So
not what we're
Azzy, you're not being
arguing.
honest, right? So
No,
you guys
I
have
am being honest.
repeatedly
That's
said,
not
you guys
what
have repeatedly said that we can't force them to take the medication. Isn't that true?
Go ahead, Drazi. I'll attack this
Should we
later
or should
on.
we not force them to take medication?
Well, it seems like you're going to force them to do it in the institutions, and I'm saying go ahead and force them to do it in their own homes.
Okay.
It's
Are
really
you gonna
funny.
ha- are you
So
gonna
how
ha-
do you
are
how
you-
do you deal with the?
Hey, stop!
Are you going to
Please.
dispatch a team of
Stop!
8 people
I
to
want
their home?
stop. So 2 things before Elder Drazi, and only Elder Drazi talks next. But people paid me money, so I'm going to read some stuff. Okay. 300 bits from Falsters to say all this. To say we shouldn't compel these people to get help is detached from reality. It is obvious that we sometimes have to compel mentally ill people to get help. It is often direct consequence of the illness. The answer is not to do away with the practice of compelling the help for the people because of the risk of getting it wrong. The answer is to mitigate the risk and frequency of getting it wrong via proper regulation and oversight. The position that Drazi has taken in this debate that we should not compel these people to help ultimately does more harm to more people than the admittedly problem ridden system we have now. Ignore these people out of fear of the inefficiencies means you allow them not only to harm themselves but others. These systems some matter, and creating the inability to address mentally ill individuals would present direct consequences that far outweigh the harm done by our current system. It's such a trope in this space to see people finding outliers in extreme circumstances to try to paint a picture that mitigates the large-scale harm reduction of a given system. Some bad does not equal all bad. The real world does not operate under these childish worldviews. Falsers, next time, please make it shorter, but I love you, buddy. Muda Agarwal for $5 asks you, Elder Drazi, and I'll allow you to answer after this. Do you think an institution with trained people and needed infrastructure, but some corruption, is worse or better than your solution?
Well, I wouldn't be arguing for the solution if it was idealized. I'm saying that even if it's idealized, it will necessarily be bad. There is the nature of these institutions causes harm to the patients, and that's why it's always been that way. I keep getting told that I'm not living in reality by having this take, but the reality is that we've never gotten it right. I understand that Nellie Bly did this back in the 60s or 80s. That doesn't matter. But this just happened in the UK in 2022. We can't get this right. That's why people in nursing homes are still being abused. That's why anytime you have this massive power imbalance, people are getting abused. If you have done...
Oh. Sure. Elder Drazi, just to question you on that, right? Do you think that the people that are outside of these institutions that are mentally ill, that are on the streets, aren't getting abused?
I think that the kinds of abuse are different. I think that if it's out in the open, people can see it. When you have people coming in to examine the conditions of these places, who are they going to talk to? The people that have been labeled insane, or are they going to talk to the administration? The administration is the one performing the abuses. They are the only people that they can talk to figure out what's going on, if the care is good or not. If you're saying that this person is insane, they're detached from reality, well, you can't have a conversation with them about their care. You have to talk to the people that would be doing the abuse. And it just blows my mind that we keep saying, well, we'll just do it right this time. It has never been done right. It has been done so bad that the American government said, our bad, we fucked up, we're going to stop doing this whole thing. When does that happen? That's how bad it is.
It's too expensive, too. It was too expensive, and that's also part of the reason why they did deinstitutionalization, because nobody wanted to continue spending the money.
It happened because of the exposure.
Yes, part of that was because of the abuse, but also part of it was, you know what, it's going to be less expensive for us to just dismantle this whole thing than for us to fix the problem.
It was always less expensive to dismantle the whole thing. That didn't change.
Yeah, that doesn't mean that it's a better
solution. Did their bills triple? No, wait. You're not addressing my counter to your point.
Hold on. Yeah, you're not. you're doing a strong man, and if anything, it's always better for them to deinstitutionalize to a certain extent, because now they can allocate resources to getting better tools into facilities for where people who can be better trained. Well, like, what are we talking about? This is the same argument we have about
Is that what
education
happened, or do
and
we have like
prisons.
a is that
And
what
I
we happened, or do we have like a has anything
That is
improved as
what
far as
Well,
those
happened.
my
people?
counter to your
I don't
argument
think
is
so.
factual. It's not debatable that it was always cheaper to take them down. Always. If you're not
Of
doing
course, it
something,
was
it
always
costs.
cheaper.
Okay, but
I
that
don't think
was
I'm
you're saying that's
disagreeing with
why
you.
they got rid of it. That's a big part of why
I
they got
think
rid
we
of
Part
it.
of
all
the reason.
agree
It's
that
part of the reason. Yeah.
But okay,
I
that
think we
reason
all
always
agree
You're
that it
you
was
existed.
are
bad for them
agreeing
to
with
shut
me.
things
You are
down because
agreeing
it was
with me that it's
expensive.
factual. We both agree that it's factual.
But
It's
it's
also part of the
irrelevant.
reason.
The
But
the
we
price
keep
It's
didn't
coming
part
triple
of
the
the
back to
year they
this
reason
decided
why
to
I
regressive
don't see
cancel
point.
it.
institutionalization coming back is because it's too fucking expensive.
Wait, no. But you forgot about Obamacare in 2010, 2014. That made mental health insurance and in facilities like
What does
this
that have to do
more
with institutionalization?
affordable. Because now that it's more affordable, it gave more people more access to the institutions. The reason why it was terrible back then, that's why even in minority communities, we have an attitude towards mental health. It's because nobody could afford that. Ain't nobody paying for that. That's what we used to say to each other. But
Yeah, but you're
now
talking
that
about a
more
completely
people can afford it, you see an ad
you are
every other
talking
day
about
talking
a
about go to
completely
BetterHelp.
different issue. You're
No, I'm
talking about a
not. I'm
completely
talking about
different issue.
we're
Yes,
talking
you
about
are.
money issues. You wanted to discuss
We're
finances.
talking
We can
about people
discuss
who are so
finances.
mentally ill that
Hold
they cannot
on, because
function in
you're making this
society.
vacuous point, and I'm just trying to talk about the finances.
Vacuous point. We're talking about a
Yes.
very specific instance here, right? We're talking about people who we know are not functional in society, people who we know do not
Okay,
get
so let's
along well with
break it
others.
down. Let's break it down. Number one, it was it was costly to the state and to the government, because now they were the ones funding it and nobody could afford it except the rich. So now they're
Speaking of affording it, $7 from Rora Pickles to say contributing to the $20,000 you asked for. It's Canadian dollars, so it's not real money, but I appreciate you anyway. I wanna move past the I wanna move not
I mean,
entirely
they're gonna
off.
bring us back, but go ahead,
Yeah,
Wick.
I wanna move entirely not entirely off the funding, because I think funding matters. But I want to ask, right? If we had the political will, we can fund very expensive things. Look at the war in Iraq, right? Look at these other things that we've poured billions and trillions of dollars into, right? So if Americans had the political will to properly fund these things, I mean, don't you think they would? And if they were properly funded, would you still oppose the forced institutionalization of people? So, for example, if we could build an institution where these abuses were mitigated, would you be okay with forcibly instituting someone who does not want to be institutionalized?
Well,
Or
of
is your
course, if we
or
want,
is
well,
your or just let me finish, or is your opposition to it one of an autonomy? Like, if they say no, it means no, and regardless of whether it would be better for them, we're still gonna hold off, right?
so then, yeah. So this, remember when you initially asked me this in DMs, and I said that we could, and it's highly important. Institutionalization, ideally, is very important. I don't disagree with you, Dubia Stardust, but we just don't have the attitude. Like Wick said, if we wanted it to happen, like America just prints money out of nowhere. America's not backed by anything. We just print money because we just think we're on top. So if we really wanted to fund this, we could. The thing is, we don't want to. Like right now, well, back then, 60s and 70s, when we wanted to, if we wanted people who needed it the most, we would have made it affordable, but we didn't. Now that it's affordable, now we have this attitude towards, well, mental health isn't real. So people, and it's like it's just wishy-washy, where we can never come to like a conclusive agreement between each other. The groups
What
of mental health or no mental health.
what
It's
about it
like,
is affordable now?
you have insurance. Your insurance pays for it now. Back then,
It
you
pays
couldn't do
pays
that. You
for
couldn't
what?
go to a therapist. You couldn't go to an institution.
Right, but
You would
this
have to
is
pay out of
completely
pocket.
different. This is completely different from again, like somebody having an extended stay in a facility.
Well, then at that point, no, then it's the state paying for it because most people can't pay that.
There's 2 points against this that if we're talking about increasing the funding for these institutions that haven't been brought up, and I think they're really important. One is that if these institutions exist, people with as I think if we had any kind of like metric for emergency treatment where they have to go to the facility, people seeking non-emergency treatment would be more afraid to go and get it because they'd be afraid of ending up in these, leading to more increased mental health problems throughout the general population. And the second one is if you increase the funding to have these buildings, you're going to increase the number of diagnoses. If you have a building and you need to fill up a certain amount of beds in order to keep your funding, you better believe that people are going to make sure that they're finding enough people to fill those beds in this mental health institution. That scares the fuck out of me. If that doesn't scare you, then you need to look at how government funding in medical projects works.
Well,
We
I mean,
haven't
before
had to
before
get
that,
those
just to quickly
people.
add on, if you have multiple buildings, then we don't even need to get into the negatives because now that we have multiple buildings with multiple highly trained individuals who want to be in the job, who have proper funding, then yeah, we can institutionalize to that extent, and there would be we would see very few inhumane occurrences take place.
Go ahead,
Better's better,
Doobie.
but it's
Doobie and Stardust. Go ahead.
So I
They
think
won't.
it's so someone, I think it was Drazi earlier, said that the thing with Nellie Bly happened like around the 60s or something. It
60s or
actually
80s, I
happened in
can't remember.
it happened in 1886.
Okay, I'm bad with years.
Right,
Sure.
so 136 years ago. So there have been, and back then, they were still doing hydrotherapy where they were dumping people in cold water, right,
Yep.
to try to treat them. They were still doing fucking bloodletting, right? They didn't understand. There have been significant advancements
You
in
know what they're
mental
telling
health.
them to do
Does
now?
this
They're
point
telling them
also
to take
go
cold
to the
showers now.
2022
That's what's funny.
undercover
They're telling
investigation
them to
as
take
well?
cold showers now.
Yeah, you guys are all rambling. Well, really quick, I wasn't done. So there have been a significant, I mean, I think you'd agree, significant advancements in mental health, psychology, psychiatry, etc. since
Which is why I brought up
1887.
the one in
Right?
2022 as well.
So, i.e., one of those advancements is
Okay.
antipsychotic medication, right?
Those things aren't
So
that
this
legitimate.
please,
They just inhibit
What are
antipsychotic
you
brain.
medication isn't
talking
legitimate.
about? What?
They just
Where does that come
inhibit.
from?
They inhibit the parts of the brain where those chemicals would have those
How else do you treat that?
reactions.
Wait,
You
How
can
else do
Oh
you
you
treat
treat
What
it
the
that?
both.
treatment is.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
I brought up Nellie
All right.
Bly because it was the first landmark case.
Uh-oh.
We've still had modern day, last year, people going undercover and finding the same kinds of abuse are happening to this day with
okay.
all the modern advancements.
Because
Okay, so
yeah,
I'm sure you can find cases of abuse in different places, of course, right? But I think the reality is going to be
Wait,
that the vast
it didn't
majority
matter.
of
Why are you
people
calling out my example?
well, because you
I
keep
don't
using
know.
Nellie
They
Bly
just looking for something
I
and
to
used
talk
talking
Nellie
about
Bly as the first
no,
landmark case,
stop,
and I
stop,
always
stop,
coupled
stop
it with the
talking, stop talking,
2022
stop talking. Let me
one
finish.
as
Stop
well.
talking. Stop talking. I understand. So I think you keep saying, oh, if somebody goes in and they're just upset, they might institutionalize you and you can't get out because this happened. Nellie Bly proved this and blah blah blah. You said this repeatedly. This happened in the fucking 1800s. Like I think if we're gonna be criticizing this idea, I think you need to go just stay within the century. Is all I'm
I
asking.
just did.
Right?
I coupled it
If you're
every
saying
single time,
okay,
even while you're
what was
making
a
this
specific
point.
case? What was a specific case in 2022?
Alan
And was it found that
Houseman.
this is a widespread? Okay, so at a single place. So because there was an abusive people at a single place, we're gonna get rid of the entire fucking system.
Wait, you
What?
said Nellie Bly's thing
No,
doesn't
that's
apply
not-
because of
that's
this.
how
Probably
bad
bring it
faith
to
can you
modern
be?
day. And
No,
I said, no,
Drozzy,
I
don't
have
even
every
indulge
time.
him. Don't even
And you're
indulge
like,
him. How
well,
bad? Don't even
now I'm
indulge
just going to
him. How
dismiss it
bad-
because I don't want to
Okay,
engage with
listen.
it.
Don't even indulge
Okay,
this,
yeah,
man. This
yeah,
is,
you, I
this
understand
is
you
what
don't
I was
engage.
talking about.
Because
This is the
okay,
attitude
the
that we're
reality is,
talking about.
okay,
Hold
stop.
on.
The
No,
reality is
no,
that Nellie Bly is
Doobie,
irrelevant.
stop. Doobie,
Nellie Bly
that was
is
so bad
no, you
faith.
stop.
Who thinks that
Nellie Bly,
That was
listen,
so
listen.
bad faith.
Nellie Bly isn't
Listen.
irrelevant to the conversation.
You
That's
asked
why I
me to
brought it
bring
up.
it into
is not.
this century.
Okay,
I did, and then you
into
moved the
this
goalpost
century,
immediately.
what you found isn't widespread cases of abuse at all these different institutions where
It's
people are
not
being held against their
widespread
will.
because we've taken
Please
them
stop.
down.
stop, where people are being held against their will, like Nellie Bly was, and they can't. There's no one they can speak to get out, et cetera, et cetera.
You're
Like Nellie
advocating
Bly.
for holding people
What you're
against their
saying,
will. Why is
what
that
you're
a
saying is,
bad
hey,
connection for you?
there's a
how
case.
bad
Please
faith
stop.
can you
What you're
be?
saying is, hey, there's a case. Please stop
How bad
talking.
faith can
You're
you
not
be?
contributing
Okay.
any. You think anti-psych meds don't work? So I think you might fucking need some. Like
I didn't
that's a
say
really
that,
strange thing
silly.
to
I
say.
didn't say that,
You
silly.
did say
This is what
that they
I
don't work.
no,
You
I
you
didn't
said they
say
don't
they
work. Oh, you
didn't
said
work.
all they do is suppress part of the brain
Is
that makes you psychotic. So what the fuck?
that
What the
means they
fuck do you?
work.
What how
That
how?
means they
So
work.
then why would
That
you
means they
criticize
work.
them?
By
Why
essentially
would
what
you
I'm
criticize
saying is
them?
that they work. No, I didn't criticize them. I said they're not
You
the end all
absolutely
be all.
did.
That's
What is the end all
essentially
be
what I'm
all?
saying.
So if someone's psychotic, they have a mental disorder,
If you
or
weren't
lead
so
them to be
bad faith,
psychotic.
you would allow somebody to
Okay,
finish.
so explain to me, how do you help that person without the medication, or in addition to the medication, what do you do?
Well, you're supposed to have a whole lifestyle routine and supplement with the medication. You can't just medicate
Oh, okay,
the
but
narcissism away.
if they ever stop taking, we're not talking about narcissism. Why do you keep saying that?
Well, I'm just gonna the broad spectrum of everybody who's going to a mental health or a mental
People with
clinic at
How did
any
narcissism
time.
antipsychotics
aren't being
stop
People
abuse?
with
Okay,
institutionalized.
depression.
okay. I
People with
think we need
hold
to.
on. This is
I
how
think we need
bad
to
faith you
reset a
are.
That's
little
so
bit. I think
stupid.
we need
We
to
don't.
reset.
We just need
I
you
want to
People
need
with
make
to
it
relax.
clear.
narcissism aren't being institutionalized.
Yeah,
We're not
I want
talking
to.
about people with
Doobie, you
narcissism.
need
We're
to
That's so
talking about
relax.
stupid.
I
people
know
who
you
are
smell
Why would you even
blood,
bring that
still
up?
but you need
okay.
to hold
Stop.
on.
Okay,
Institutionalized.
stop.
You know that you said
Everyone.
something really stupid and you're refusing to fucking
Okay.
engage with it.
I want to make it clear. I want to make it clear. We're not talking about ADHD or autism or things like that. We're talking about people who have severe mental illness that makes it so that they cannot function in society, or are violent. And I'm trying to find where everyone is okay. What the line is
Okay.
where people, if there is any, where people would be okay. Well, it's like, hey, okay, we need to, even if you don't want to, even if you really, really don't want to, we're going to have to put you somewhere, right? We're going to have to
Okay,
put you in a
yeah.
place that you don't want to be
Well, I don't
to
know how
get
we
I
can
I
make any
watched it.
argument,
I know
Wick.
this. Yeah.
Not enough
I know
people.
this.
We can't make any arguments, you guys. Not enough people have gone
We can't.
undercover and been held against their will, and now there's antipsychotic meds, which somehow prevents these people from being abused. So Doobie said it all by not engaging
Okay.
with anything that I said whatsoever.
Yeah, he's
I
bad
will.
faith. That's
I
what I
don't
meant.
think either. I don't think Doobie or I will disagree that medicine has improved. Medicine isn't what it used to be. Medicine, as it was practiced in the past, well, in some ways could have been abusive or could have been wrong. Right? Obviously, right? This is how science works. This is how medicine works.
That's not the
As time
contention
goes on.
ever.
Wait a minute.
That's
Let me
not the
finish what I'm
contention.
fucking
That's not
saying.
even what you're
You
arguing
fucking
with.
retard.
You're
Let me finish
arguing
what I'm
ghosts.
saying. Retarded, retarded.
Casper's not in the
Okay,
room.
you are fucking retarded. You
We're
deserve to.
retarded
I
because
don't know.
we're engaging with what you're saying.
Because
That's
My
not
you
the
points
are.
have
type of
not been
mental
Let me
illness
engaged
we're
with.
finish
talking
what I'm
about,
saying.
Stardust.
Let me
We're
finish what I'm
talking
saying.
about
I'm
bipolar
not finished
disorder and
speaking. I'm not finished
violence.
speaking. I'm not finished speaking. I'm not finished speaking. Where was I? Okay.
Very fanatic of you.
So, um, right. We are not disagreeing that medicine, improves as there's more research done, right? That's obvious.
That was
Uh,
Doobie's
and
point, not
and
ours.
shut the fuck up.
Well, you
Shut
keep
up.
saying we're not
You
disagreeing, but nobody
shut the fuck
suggested
up.
that you
Shut
were.
the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. You guys were talking about, oh, they were found all these abuses and all of that, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
obviously. No shit, Sherlock, because the medical industry was not what it was
I
different
didn't
back then.
claim it was because of the medicine. I said it's because of the power imbalance. Doobie's the
I'm
one
not
who said the
talking
medicine's
look,
gotten better. Not
the
none of us.
medicine has gotten better, but when you talk about the power imbalance, also that is part of practicing and taking care of people. And guess what?
Correct.
The way that we practice and the way that
Correct.
we
Yeah.
take care of people,
Truism.
shut the fuck up. The way that we practice medicine and take care of people has improved dramatically over the past few decades, right? So this whole power imbalance bullshit that you're bringing, sure, there may be some power imbalance, right? But that does not always make things
Total power imbalance.
abusive.
is
Power imbalance does not necessarily make things abusive. And the way that we practice care, the way that we take care of patients, the way that we empathize with them has improved over the decades. So, Doobie and I are not,
Wait,
advocating
can you
for some
support
weird,
that?
archaic version of what institutionalization used to be.
You're just
Okay,
saying that
can
it's
I?
improved, but I'm saying it hasn't improved. The abuse is still there. You're
Can
just
I
saying
ask?
that
Power
it
imbalance
has.
does not
To
even
make this
equal
less
abuse.
rhetorical.
No, stop for a moment. I want to engage a little bit, and I want to toss it to Rebecca, but I want to ask Drosy.
You do need power imbalances in medical cares,
It's
in
an
medical
That is a
absolute
question.
power imbalance.
So, do you not think that there is like any good that comes from the power imbalance? Why should the doctors not be in power over their patients. Like the patients aren't the ones that have the
Power, yeah.
expertise. They aren't the ones that have the training. And in these cases, they aren't. They are literally not in their right mind. Right?
So, like I said before, it's not just that there's a power imbalance, it is absolute. If somebody comes in to investigate, they have to talk to the doctors. You can't talk to an insane person to get a view of their treatment. You're going to talk to the administration, you're going to talk to the doctors. If these people are
And the
wanting to keep their
doctors
jobs
won't
and they
help
want
each
the
other.
institution to keep on functioning and running, they're going to lie to cover their asses. And there is nobody there to support the mentally ill people. This is the nature of it. This is why
I
we
think
see the
that's
same kinds of
bullshit.
abuses in the Stanford prison experience. You might think it's bullshit, but you have not offered one single piece of data to support what
Again,
you're saying.
if
You're
you
just
look,
saying, you're just talking
if
about your
you
feelings. You feel like it's
you are telling
different.
me, if you are telling me that we go to a facility and we interview all of the nurses and all of the doctors and all the administrators, that nobody's going to snitch on each other, nobody.
If there's abuse happening in the
That's like
facility, there
some
would already be a
conspiratorial.
whistleblower, would there not?
That is
They're just
conspiratorial
waiting.
bullshit if I ever
They're
heard
just
it.
waiting for this philanthropic investigator to come in. Finally, I've been waiting so long to do something about this.
They
I
will
couldn't have picked
snitch
up the
on their
phone.
colleagues. Yes, they will.
Then why isn't that happening?
It is.
I
That's
mean,
why
it
they were
clearly is. Yeah.
deinstitutionalized in the first place.
It happened. It happened because of the exposés that I was talking about.
Well, yeah, including that. People were snitching, and then when people were going in unannounced and doing investigations and finding that things were happening that were inhumane.
But in
So
some
I don't
why-
understand.
cases,
I don't understand the contention on these points. And
There's a lot of
we
things I don't
understand.
understand.
And this is across the board in every facet of institutionalized society. When it gets too big, things start to happen that ain't right. And when it's smaller, it's easier to control. So
That
I
is
don't
better.
understand why
So
you're
you're
arguing.
suggesting that we can have these institutions where the people, they're forced to be there. It's mandatory. They're forced to take medication if they don't want it. But so long as it's small, so long as there's like a limit on the number of patients that can be there, and it's kept a reasonable number, and so long as there's oversight by third parties who are like patient advocates, right? Are you suggesting that would be fine?
That and then some. Would you like to hear that and then some? I don't want.
Sure.
I don't want a
Well,
monologue. Does
before
anyone
he
else
does
have
the
to?
then
Yeah,
some,
go
before
ahead.
he does the then some, $5 from Muda Agarwal to ask Eldrazi. There is a power imbalance between me and my school teacher. Should we abolish schools?
Is it absolute? Could she beat the shit out of you and rape you, and then if somebody comes and asks about it, they won't take your word for it, only hers?
Why do you
Then
assume
yeah,
the teacher is
probably.
she?
Well, because I don't know.
And the
Because
majority
I'm
of teachers
angry.
are women.
Because I'm angry, and
No, it's
I'm
data,
angry
bro.
at Stardust,
Nah,
so
don't
I
let
made
Whick
the
get
teacher
you.
a
Don't
woman.
let Whick. No, don't let Whick get you on that. The majority of teachers are women. Don't let him do that to you.
Yeah, probably because all of my favorite teachers were women.
Noted.
Yeah,
Finish your
and
point. Finish your point briefly, Azzy. 'Cause
yeah, the and then some is that you can reduce the dosage where the people don't feel like they're losing their autonomy or their agency based upon the medication. When I was talking about the medication,
dosage.
across the board. Excuse me, let me swallow my spit. People feel like they're not themselves when they take the medication, and it's by design of the medication because it is interrupting certain chemical processes in your brain. So my solution is, hey, we we give the medication in increments and smaller doses, and then give them lifestyle choices that are within a realm, so they still feel like they have their autonomy and
Have you
agency,
ever
and they're
dealt
still
with
being
mentally ill
yes,
people?
yes,
Holy
yes,
fuck,
yes.
Well, then
man.
you
In
should know
fact,
that's
in fact,
that's
I
what already
worked for
happened.
I
Let's
worked
just
for
give
I
them a smaller
volunteered in a
dose.
veteran.
Yeah, that'll make them
Before you
that'll make
interrupt
them
me, I
want
can
to
just
take the
answer your question
medication.
right now. I know you feel emotional right now. Just control yourself.
Okay,
so
but
you don't
Azzy,
get
that's already what
institutionalized.
happens. Can you respond to that too?
You have
That's literally
agency,
what
guys.
already
You're
what
fully
happened.
functioning
They
adults.
want
You can
that,
control
so they'll
yourselves.
just want to take the medication if it's the smaller dose.
Wick, we need to get these
Just
people
scream, shut the
some
fuck up, and call her
medication, man.
retarded. That's
Yeah,
what she
just
does.
Okay, can
yeah,
I ask?
just
Can
give
I
them
ask?
medication, bro. They can't control
Azzy,
themselves.
do you realize that not all like I understand that ideally if we could treat these people, like we could eventually wean them off medication in some cases, but there's a lot of mental illnesses where you cannot, that we do not
You
you are
can't.
on
You
I'm
medication
not
cannot keep
anti-meds.
people on
for
medication for
life.
the
Well,
rest of your
we're
life.
not. Yeah, I agree with you, Stardust, but we're not anti-meds, and we're at the same time we're not anti-agency. It's gonna institutionalization of mental illness is a complex issue, and it's going to require consideration of individual needs. So
Okay.
I'm proposing, and most of us have proposed, community-based institutionalization,
Then
where
how are
people
you
can, the primary focus is mental health treatment, but you can have the appropriate support and resources where we can now, this is why people get personal trainers, where we can now
how
idealize the treatment to the individual's needs. And
how
What
are
do
if
you
you
think?
going
What
that's
do you
to
what
think
is a
our What do
one
you
to
think
can
our
one,
you
position
when
is?
you
okay,
have a
let me
big
ask you a
institution,
question.
it becomes
Can I
harder
ask
to
you a
do
question?
that.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, of course,
How
just allow me to
are you
finish.
going are you going to dispatch a team of 6 people to go to somebody's house to make them take medication?
Yeah, that's
And
called
how
home
are
health.
you
It already
how are you
exists.
going to do that? And how are you
That
going to
process
make
already
how
exists, Stardust.
how are you
It already
6
exists.
people to dispatch 6
Yes.
people? No,
Yes,
they don't. They send
311
like 1
911.
social worker.
When the
When
that
the
system
police is
already
called, they
exists, you can just take what we already have and just introduce it in a new
it,
way.
it,
When
it,
the ambulance comes,
how are you going to
just
fund
like
it?
2 or 3 people,
Well,
when you
I actually
call them
have.
and let them know
I can
the
answer
case,
that really
yeah,
easily.
he
I
can
had
go right there.
surgery, and a nurse came to my house every day for a while to make sure that
I'm
everything
not
was
talking about
good.
one nurse. I'm talking about a group of 6 people because what we're talking
I
about
don't
is
agree with you that
people
you need a group
who
of 6 people for the
We
vast
just
majority
okay,
of
add more
people.
people.
yeah, this is then this is very clear that
Let's
you've
figure
never
it
dealt
out.
with somebody who's
Yes, I
bigger
have.
than you, who's
Well, then
mentally who's
that's why on the
mentally
phone.
ill, who's
That's why on
violent.
the.
It's somebody who's
I don't want to
much
interrupt.
bigger than
Yeah,
you
you're more likely
and
to get the
violent
police.
and
So that
mentally
happened
ill.
to you, so now
You
you
would
know you
need
need
a
six
team of
people.
people.
Okay.
So
You would
this is
need a
why you
team
should
of
get.
people.
This is why
You are
you get
full
the
of
six foot.
Okay,
anecdotes.
Get the
okay,
six
stop,
foot.
stop,
Get the six
stop,
foot men back
stop,
into
stop,
healthcare.
stop, stop. So, Elder Drazi, in your case, you were willing to have your care. I'm assuming you didn't fight, correct?
Correct.
Correct. So, what we're talking about isn't the people who want care. The people who want care can they
I'm saying
we
that's
I
how it's
think
dispatched. That was an example
everyone
how it's
here,
dispatched.
sure, everyone here is okay with like increasing the capacity for those who want help to get help. I don't think there's anyone against that here. I could be wrong. But what we're talking about is the people who refuse care, who think that they're coming to implant a microchip in them, right? Or in the taking the pills are going to let them track them, and they're going to implant the alien eggs inside them and make them different people. And so they will fight tooth and nail against
Oh.
ever taking this medication. That's the people we're talking about. So when you have someone who is the size of, say, Doobie, right? Who's 500 pounds, 6'4", right? And just this huge blob guy who will fight and like roll on over you, right? You're going to need more than one person to do that, even if they're big and strong.
I'm contesting 6 people. Also, Wick, you got to be careful with all that microchip stuff. You just alienated like half of your conservative fan base. A lot of anti-vaxxers
Can you actually
out
deal
there.
with what he's saying though? So because
I did. I was saying you don't need. I was contesting that you
How many
don't need
people?
6 people. It depends
Okay,
on the
how many
situation.
people? And are
Like
you
any
suggesting-
other medical situation, you provide as many people are needed for that specific situation.
Right.
There's not a broad
So when-
amount. There's not a broad recommendation for how many people you need to treat any given person.
Okay.
It depends on the
So
situation.
you're suggesting that healthcare workers get like a training in like a close quarters combat because Wick's uncle. Yeah, I know. I
Goodness.
see
You-
you.
The same
showed a lack of
training.
knowledge.
You being please
This shows a
listen,
lack of
listen,
knowledge.
listen.
Go ahead, Doobie. Say
Stop.
that stupid
You
stuff.
grabbing your head and being surprised that I said that. It just indicates again that you don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
I do know because I had somebody who
Wick's uncle,
was
for
trained as an
example,
EMT.
Please stop. Please stop. Wick's uncle is not going to want to, because he doesn't want this medication to be given to him, he's going to fight. And he's not just going to fight with his fists. He'll grab shit around the house. He'll grab a knife. He'll grab a fucking pan. He's going to fight.
He'll
Right?
throw
So to say,
dishes at
oh,
you.
well, hey, these fucking EMT people, they just need like a shield. And,
You don't know
they
what
need
you're
like a,
talking about. Go ahead,
yeah, I
Doobie.
do know what I'm talking. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. So what actually happens is the cops go out. Right? The cops go out, they try to restrain the person, and sometimes they kill them. Right?
Well, that's
And
the
sometimes-
problem. That's
and
why we're
sometimes in
advocating
the process,
against that. What are you
sometimes
talking
in the
about?
process,
That's how bad faith
they
you
hit
are.
the cop.
Keep
They
saying
hit the
that stupid
cop.
stuff.
They hit the cop and
No,
they go to jail.
you're not
Right? So
listening.
so what are you suggesting then? So they
I
go
knew
to,
he was gonna say
please,
that, Stardust. That's why I was
please
like,
stop.
finish the stupid statement.
Azzy, what are you suggesting? So they go to Wick's house, right? Or like they go to find Wick's uncle in the fucking woods. He has a big ass log. He's trying to hit them with it because he doesn't want to take the fucking medication. What are you suggesting?
I
Like, what do they
suggest
do?
instead of the 6-foot cop, have the 6-foot EMT or the 6-foot home health aide to go in there and get as many 6-foot
one of
home health
them.
aides. Get as many. I just literally, you talking about not
Yeah,
listening.
so you're
The
literally
word literally.
suggesting that
No,
they're
no, no, no,
trained
no.
like
Let me finish.
police.
Let me finish. Let me finish. I understand that because this is the same respect that y'all keep asking for, yet y'all don't give out. Maybe you need to be institutionalized. You can't control yourselves. What I was saying is send as many people as necessary, which is what Drazi already said multiple times, and make sure they are home health aides or EMT people who work this facility, who work this job. You don't send the police officer because they're not trained for this.
Well, Ozzy, you're missing the point that
Home
Doobie's
health aides
making,
aren't
which is
trained
that
for
there is
this.
magic in the walls of an institution
No,
that
what
allows
I'm
this to happen
suggesting
that can't happen
is that
anywhere
home
else.
health
Well,
aides
if
aren't trained
you're the
for
person
this.
who thinks
Home health
that
aides
6
are
people is
trained for
not
this.
No, they're
required
not.
No, no,
in
That's
no,
your
no,
fucking
no,
ridiculous.
situation,
no,
so
no.
that's
Number one, number one.
Psychiatric nurses are
We
trained
can't
for
Hold
that.
on,
we
that's
can't
stupid.
train
They're
people
Hold
to
on.
do this
Home
outside
health
of an
aides are
institution.
not
It's
trained for
I don't know what
this.
you're
impossible.
That is a
talking about.
stupid
Go
thing
ahead,
to
Rebecca.
say.
I'm
I
sorry.
know
again,
many,
you're the
many home
person
health
who
aides. They're
thinks
not trained for this.
They don't know what they're talking
I
about.
want
I
to
just
toss
said
it. I want to toss it to
They're
Rebecca.
psychiatric.
typically
Rebecca,
they're
go ahead.
typically little old ladies who do like nursing.
I want
They
to
change
top.
diapers and shit on the
I want
side.
to.
Okay,
I
like
want to
they're
toss
not
it.
trained for this shit.
I want to toss it to Rebecca. Rebecca, what are you trying to say, please?
I was saying that psychiatric nurses are trained for that. They are trained to handle large, unpredictable people and situations. They are.
yes,
Yeah,
they
you're
This
just
are.
not dealing with
exists. So you
reality.
don't have
You're a
Again,
fucking
a.
idiot.
yes, they are.
You expect
Psychiatric
me to
All right.
believe.
Okay.
You
Well,
expect me to
I want to give
believe
it to
that these.
Stardust. I want to give it to Stardust. I want to give it to
psychiatric
Stardust. Stardust,
nurses
go ahead.
are psychiatric nurses are trained to deal with that, but they're also trained to deal with that with the assistance of multiple facility members who can hold somebody down if they're being violent and if they're much stronger and larger than the psychiatric nurse. Yes, they're trained to deal with that, but that is not without the help of other people, of multiple other people, and in restraining a violent patient. And I'm sorry if the patient is over 6 feet and has 200 pounds on you and has access to everything around them. They will throw everything at you that they can. They will use their fists. They will draw blood from you when they can to prevent
That's the
you from
nature
doing
of the
anything.
job.
I think Rebecca, like me, has seen some nurses take down guys 3 times their size because these nurses are
Well,
bad
Again,
bitches.
that
I've
that
seen it.
Nah,
The
it's
nurse,
not.
hand-to-hand
nurses
They're
combat
are
just
bad
they're all
nurses.
like
bitches.
Yeah.
I
kung
won't
fu
disagree with
fighters.
you. Nurses won't are
Yeah.
bad
They are.
bitches, but we are talking about in most cases, even if psychiatric nurses
We
are
don't
trained to
know
deal with
most
that,
cases. What are
yes,
you
I
appealing
do.
to?
Yes, I do, motherfucker. In
All right,
most
so drop
cases,
it.
where
Pull it up.
excuse me,
Yes.
let me finish what I'm saying. When psychiatric nurses are dealing with this, right? If there is a extremely violent person, that does not mean that there are not other facility people who are there helping her hold that person down.
All
What
right,
is
so
magic
back
about
this
the
Why are
up.
you
institution that
assuming a
No,
allows
nurse
no,
is
it?
no,
a
no, no, no,
woman?
no, 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 no. Don't even indulge this. Back that stuff up. You said
Sorry,
you had
Rebecca,
the
I didn't
data
mean to interrupt
points.
you.
Stuff up.
Back it up. Back it up.
Oh,
I don't I don't
Show me about these
Hold
most
on, you
instances
guys made
where
the claim
people
that
are so
nurses are
small
bad
they
bitches
can't
and they
deal
take
with
down
it.
a guy three
I
times
need
their
you to
size,
back the
etc.
claim
Why
that
don't you back that up?
nurses can handle
We're
a
Why don't
talking
you
person
back
about
up
the
that
this
size
idea?
on
exceptions to
their
the
own.
rule. We're talking no, we're
You're
talking
okay.
about the
We understand you're
hold
talking
on,
about
hold on, hold
exceptions.
on.
That's a fucking
Hold,
problem.
obviously we're joking.
Well,
Bad faith
then
individuals.
why would you even
I
say
think
And
that?
number
I
two,
wasn't
Personally,
joking.
Wait,
Why
and
would you
number
I'm not.
why would
Stop,
you
stop,
use that
stop,
argument
stop,
you want
stop,
to
if
stop.
it's a
Because
fucking
it's very
joke?
unclear to me. It's very unclear to me that Drazi was joking. Were you joking, Drazi?
No. And
Well, I
and,
was
and the
partially.
reason why I used an
Azzy, let
anecdote
Drazi speak for himself.
The reason
Drazi,
why
go
I
Yes,
ahead.
let
used an
Azzy respond to
anecdote
that.
is because Doobie and Stardust have provided literally only anecdotes. I'm the only person that has provided anything that is actually based in reality that anybody can look up to support the things that I'm saying. Stardust said, "Well, I have seen." Doobie saying, "Well, I don't believe you. You're just stupid." But I don't see any evidence of anything you
Azzy,
guys
why
have
do you think?
suggested.
Azzy, why
I've
do you think
provided
drugs?
evidence.
I
Oh
worked
God,
in the
Azzy, why do
medical
you think?
I worked in the medical field before I was a streamer. Okay. I don't want to go into detail about the things that I know and the things that I've done, but I will tell you that there is still like yes, there are cases where a single nurse can take down a large violent patient, but but that is not the norm. And in a lot of cases, you've got the facility helping you do
Which is
that.
what I said.
You can
So
Which is what
deploy
I
these
said. It's
people
the
the same as
exception
you
to
can
the
deploy
rule.
anybody
I have
else.
data. I have data to share
Yeah,
with the
thank you.
class.
Wick, let me go real quick.
Sure.
And then you can drop
No,
the
I'll drop the
hardcore
data
fact.
and then you can go, right? I will
All right.
drop this into
All
the
right.
group
Yeah.
chat, right? Um This is a paper that says that, well, you can read the abstract. There are more mentally ill people in jail and in prisons today than there are in hospitals. And my question to your side of these things is that a good thing?
No, they should have been getting
Why
treatment.
Wait, which side?
your side?
Us?
Again,
Of
this is the
course, of
result.
course.
This is why I'm saying the result of deinstitutionalization in the Reagan administration has been that instead of mental institutions, that these people go to jail,
Well,
right?
that's not. No, 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 no.
That has been the result. That's what
That's a
we've seen.
disingenuous. It's not because of the deinstitutionalization.
It
It's
was a direct
because
result of
n-
it.
it is a direct, but that doesn't mean cause. What's it called? Correlate. That's a correlation. What's it called? Just the cause. Does the effect doesn't
Causation
mean
isn't, or correlation isn't
causation?
causation.
Yeah,
Yeah, see,
it's a
Wick, what you
correlation,
don't
not a
understand is
causation.
a
No,
cause is
hold
they're
on, hold on.
mentally ill. I see. That's
No,
what he's saying.
it's not the cause. It's because they didn't reinvest those resources back into community facilities and they didn't address the problem about the
That these people can
community
walk out of.
because they didn't really care about the individual. They just cared about facilitating the institution,
So
which is
given
their
that we
job.
Community
live in a
And
facilities
world,
number one,
like the one
mind you,
Jordan
mind
Neely
you,
went
mind
to
you,
that he
mind you,
walked out
mind you,
of, by the
mind you,
way,
mind
2
you,
weeks
that
before
is
he
the
died.
government and state's job is to facilitate the institution, but it's also their job to make sure the individual's okay so that the institution is okay. If they don't reinvest all those
Azzy,
resources
Azzy,
back into community
what do
facilities,
you think our
that's
position
why
is?
they get locked up. That's why we have lack of
Azzy, what do you
training.
think our position is?
You're asking questions. I'm most likely gonna answer them if you just allow me to finish. If you just let me
I have
finish,
just
you
dropped
probably
a
won't
link.
even asking these
I,
silly questions.
I dropped a link into the group chat that talks about how psychiatric hospitals have evolved. Maybe that will be informative for some of you guys.
I mean, yeah, we agree. We know that they have evolved. But
Yes.
we're just saying there's not enough of them. And they're not localized.
Well, I'm in
We
favor of
we've been
short-term
saying
care
that from
Azzy,
the jump.
facilities.
Is that what you're
Azzy, what do you
saying?
think our position is?
Your position is institutionalize them, just lock them away. What you don't realize is
That's
that
What are you
that, that
saying?
is such a
we're
straw
actually
man.
agreeing with you, but we just want it on a smaller scale. Now, my
No,
question
that's
to
not true.
you,
I
my
I don't.
That
question
is
is to
not
you. No,
true.
no,
As
hold on,
you
hold
give,
on, wait,
What
wait,
do you?
wait.
No, I
Let
no,
me
need you
ask
to
a
lay out
question.
what you think my
Because
position
no,
is.
hold on. So I'm gonna ask you to make
Institutionalize
sure.
them and lock them
Let me
away? Like,
ask
what
you
the
to.
fuck does that mean?
That's just what our that's our position now, Doobie.
So let me ask you a question. All right, what is wrong with community-based institutions?
I think the way that you've been describing community-based institutions, quote unquote, is
Describing
is
how.
so you have these places that are local, where that are well funded, that where there's oversight, where people can make sure that they're not being abused. And in cases where it's required that you force them to take their medication, you can do it at that facility in the community and just make sure that they're not being abused or whatever. That's very similar, I think, to what my position is. Right?
Well, then
So
we
when you
agree. So
say,
what's the
listen,
problem?
so
What's the
when you
point of
say, well, so
contention?
listen, wait, please. So when you say that my position is to institutionalize them, lock them away, like what do you mean by that? What do you think you've been
I'm just
arguing with?
assuming that because you've been arguing with my point that
what
we
no, one
both
of the
agree on.
problems. Okay,
So
one of the
I'm
problems.
only
One of
go
the
ahead, wait.
stop. One of the problems I'm seeing, Ozzy, your position is different than Drazi's and Rebecca's. You are arguing from a third position.
Yes.
Drazi and Rebecca are saying no. We don't think even if they were small, even if they were like more localized, we don't think involuntary long-term institutionalization is good, and we would oppose that. Whereas you are saying, well, actually, I think if I don't like the big asylums, but if we made them smaller and more compact and more local and more community based, then it would be okay. Is
Yeah,
that a
that's just me
fair?
meeting. That's just me
Okay,
trying to be the
but
bridge to
Drazi
me meeting
isn't
where they
But
building
are.
like Drazi, as I understand it, and
but
Drazi can
hold on,
speak
but
for
Azzy,
himself. But Drazi
Yeah.
isn't building these bridges. He's unwilling to build this bridge, right? Is that
Whenever he
true?
yeah,
said that,
Azzy, wait
every
one
time he
second.
said alluded to that, I've said better is better. I think that's better than
So
what's being
then
suggested by
they
Stardust and Doobie, but it's not where I want to be.
Okay,
yeah,
so Alder,
every
what do you
time. No,
think is
hold on,
being
hold on,
suggested
hold
by
on,
that?
hold on. Don't
Okay.
ask a question. Let me answer your question first, right? Because you still haven't answered mine. Because every time I've spoken, Drazi and Rebecca both nodded their head in agreement, and only you two have been at odds with me. So I'm only here to assume that you have a problem with the things I'm saying beyond the hyperbole.
To be honest,
Hyperbole,
Azzy,
excuse me.
I've been mostly arguing with Elder Drazi. Not really you. Just you've been like combative with me, so I've
You've
been
been
fighting
defending
with you.
him. That's
Yeah.
the issue.
So
And then you
yeah.
say that his
Because y'all are bad
position was
faith.
actually a
That's
joke.
why.
And then you said that his position was actually a joke, but it wasn't a joke to him. So I think I
When we're no, because it's funny. That's why we laughed when we said it, because it's funny when we say the short grandma is able to combat and take down the 600 6 foot man. We were
people
joke. We are being both serious
Oh,
because it's
okay.
in instances it's okay, but it's funny because it's an exception to the rule, and we're not saying that's what we think should be the end all be all. We're saying that, like we said multiple times already, if you're really listening, get the 6 foot guys. You probably need to stop being
yeah, but
police
here's the
officers. Hold on. This is why y'all
oh
keep
god.
arguing, because
Okay,
you just
keep
won't
on.
even
Go
no
go
patience.
for it. Go for it. Go for it.
Get the 6 foot guys out off the police squad. Get them trained in being a home health aide or EMT, so they can go up and be and actually fulfill the requirements for the situation at hand. If we get the 6 foot guy, as many guys as we need, we won't need the grandma who needs a backflip and karate chop the 600 pound 6 foot man.
Okay, so but Azzy, I
So
would agree
what?
with
So
you. Wait,
what?
listen. So I'd agree with you. I think where we would actually agree too is if that person is in a place where they need to be forced to take the medication because they're a danger to themselves and others, right? Because they think the walls are screaming at them or they're telling them to kill people, whatever the fuck. After you get them to take the medication, after they're sedated, we would take them to this local community hospital where they'd be held against their will and treated, right, until they're okay. They're assessed to be okay to leave, right?
Well,
Not just locked away forever and you shut the fucking door on them. You treat them. You treat them like human beings and you give them help, right? And you allow them a space where their family can come and see them whenever the fuck they want while they're going through treatment, so they can get all the community support and familiar support that they need. I think what Drazi would say is, yeah, if that person doesn't want to go to this place long term, right, then you can't force them to go, even if they think the walls are telling them to kill people.
That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that there's no reason why the care that you're talking about happening in this facility can't happen in their home. There's no reason why we can't have some kind of like house arrest where we take the treatment to them. There's lots of people that could be hospitalized for physical ailments, but instead they opt to have it done in their home because it's better for them. The
So
problem here
let
is
me
just
let
we
me
don't
get
care
some
enough
clarity
to
here, because
end
maybe
it.
I'm misunderstanding. So Drazi,
Yeah.
if someone was not violent, let's take violence off the table. Let's take violence. They're not violent, but they have demonstrated that they are unable to take care of themselves, right? They 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 have dementia. They're just wandering the streets, right? They think that they're hearing voices. It makes them unable to interact in society. They can't hold a job, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you're saying, right, that if they don't want help, they're saying, no, I don't want any help, that you would be okay with locking them in their home, keeping them from leaving, and forcing them to take medication.
Yeah. If they are a danger to themselves and others, and we have the option to
No, they're not a danger to themselves and others. They're just unable to take care of themselves. So they're not violent, right?
well, we need to have somebody go to the home to make sure that their needs are being met, and if they are able to get their needs met through this person, or through this system, then they should be able to basically they should be allowed as much
Well,
freedom as is safely possible for the person at all times. Now that's why you don't hear me saying like if the person is criminally insane and they're like trying to kill people, yeah, it's okay to institutionalize some people, but it's at the most extreme end of the spectrum. I don't think that we care about these people at all if we're saying that we want to take the people that make our lives more uncomfortable or that make us uncomfortable or that they are difficult to deal with. So we want to put them in a facility because it's more financially doable or any of these other reasons. These are all bad. This is all
well,
putting all the negative ramifications of the thing that they didn't
well,
choose onto
again,
them.
I'll use my personal example, right? My
Yeah.
uncle had a home. He could not continue to afford his home or keep his home because of his severe mental illness. He lost his home, right? And while he is welcome in mine or my parents or my other family members, he often chooses not to stay in our home because of shame, because of fear, many, many reasons, right?
Oh, oh,
So, what do we do with the people who don't have a home? How do we give home care to someone who does not have a home?
okay. So
There's
if
two
you allow
options
me to
there.
answer,
Well,
Can I answer real
I
quick?
want Drazi to answer. I asked Drazi
all
a
right, go
question.
ahead.
I'm
So there's
curious.
two options here. One, he can be placed under one of the family members' care if they have been evaluated by the state to make sure that they are capable of providing such care in conjunction with the state mental health system that I'm proposing. Or we can help get them into a home, and part of the system that gets them a home is also making sure that there is the necessary amount of mental health services provided to them that would be determined by the person assessing their whole case. Like they would have a caseworker that determine how much mental health services they need in the home, which could be all the way up to like rotating healthcare workers that are there all the time. I just don't want these people completely removed from society. There's no way that I can be convinced that this is going to be better for their mental health or better for society.
That's why housing first is such a big issue in homeless services. When someone is housed in an adequate manner, that is like adding so much stability to someone's life. So if someone loses their housing, that is going to throw off their treatment and their ability to even like conceptualize a future for themselves. So that's why people talk about housing first. So I would say that's a huge important piece. If someone loses their house, that's going to throw off all other aspects of their life.
I mean, I was gonna say that. Well, yeah, I agree with both. I would only add on that this is why I was bringing. We also need to make sure there's a distinction between those like we've been doing in this conversation, those who are mentally divergent, who are that divergency is leading into mental illness, and those who have mental illnesses. All right, because once we're able to figure out the difference between those two, we can say, hey, you have the agency and the autonomy to deal with your divergency, so you don't become ill. Versus those who may be mentally ill, they have autonomy, but they're not really agents. They're not taking care of themselves, so maybe they need to live with somebody else, or we need to bring somebody into their home or institutionalize them.
I think institutionalizing should be
I
reserved for the
wanna
most extreme cases.
I want to
Restrict
give
And
it to
extremely short and limited. And basically, one function of institutionalization that I think is valuable is to put time between when someone is in a crisis and when they do something drastic, like hurting themselves or others. That's why, like, suicide intervention is so important, just to put time between that crisis moment and a consequence.
And
do
that's why I
we
said, like, I don't believe in long term.
stop. Do we not think that there are some instances, right, where some illnesses and some people and how they deal with them cannot be let out, right? That they,
Yeah.
because they cannot be treated, right, or cannot be treated sufficiently, that for their own well-being, they have to be kept in a space. Because I know plenty, not just my uncle, but I know others. I've dealt with others who would leave these institutions after their crisis and just go off and be forgotten, right?
There's some
And
people,
go ahead.
yeah, there's some people who, unfortunately, even if you get them on medication, even if you get them with therapy, they are never going to be 100%. They're never even going to be 50% because they are just so far gone. There are some people who, with all of that treatment, they're just never going to be functional members of society, even with medication, even with therapy. So um I hate to say it, right? Obviously the ideal situation would be where a family could take care of that person, but that's not always the case. And when that's not the case, I do think it's better to have them in an institution that can take care of them, can be caring for them and help them take their medication and stay on track, rather than having them out on the streets, them not even taking medication, and them not even seeing therapy and not even being able to do any of those things.
Go ahead, Doobie.
Yeah, I was just hoping we could get a response to that from specifically Rebecca.
On which?
What Stardust and Wick just
Oh,
the idea
this
that there's some people
specific.
who would need to be forcefully institutionalized long term or permanently.
I think there is a difference between someone who is experiencing severe mental illness and someone who literally cannot have custody of themselves. So I'm thinking of someone like an adult with Down syndrome or a severely mentally ill person who is literally like suffering from some kind of illness or like disease. I think, and what we do with them now, what we try to do with them now is to put them in group homes where they can live some semblance of like a family life, even if it's not with their real family. And that I think is important for those people. And that needs to be funded and well maintained because the like opportunities for abuse are so rife. But I'm not against that. I'm against the like warehousing of mentally ill people outside of society, which is what institutionalization was.
Wait, but I feel like you didn't really engage with what I was actually pointing to. I'm not talking about somebody who's like has Down syndrome or they're like extremely anxious or they're like it's like agoraphobic. I think it is when you're afraid to go outside or whatever the fuck it.
It is.
We're not talking about we're not talking about those people really. We're talking about people who have like violent delusions, right, or like psychosis
Yeah.
or
I
So
think
people
there's
like
who
definitely
paranoid schizophrenia.
can I answer please?
And
I
I
think
think
there's
what just
definitely
well,
times when
just really quickly. So I think so I guess the contention would be that putting those people in group homes, not only would that be like dangerous to the other people in the group home, if they're like unmedicated, but if you're putting them there and you're not forcing them to take the medication or forcing them to stay there, that could obviously lead to like bad outcomes, right?
sure, and I agree. And I think that there are certain people who need to be taken care of in a more secure setting. I don't disagree with that at all. There are definitely people who are more dangerous to others around them. And I think that they do need to be taken care of in a different setting. I don't disagree.
There's some people who are so ill, right, that when they're not on medication, they're the ones who will become violent, right? They're the ones who will have blow ups and things like that, and they're very hard to take care of. And then even when they're on medication, they are still so sick, they're still so ill that they will never be a functional member of society, although they may be less likely to be violent, right? So
I think if
I think it's
medication can.
important to
Oh,
talk about
I
what
go ahead. Go ahead.
so, I was just going to say, I think it's important to talk about what we mean when we say a functional member of society, too,
never
because
having a job,
that's
never
obviously
having a
very,
job.
very fraught.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
never
no,
having
I
a
know.
job, never being able to take
Yeah,
care of themselves, not being able to even make their own food on some occasions, right? Being reliant on other people for the rest of their lives, right?
You literally
yeah.
just
And I
described
agree
severely
that those are
autistic
like
people.
severe. Yeah, I agree that those are like
which is
severe
mental
issues that people
divergency.
have, and they need those. They need those needs to be met. But I don't think that we should consider those people as like not a part of society. You know what I mean?
They're
Like
not
just because
functional in
someone needs a
society,
high
but
level of care doesn't mean that
yeah.
they can't participate in society and be a part of us out here, you know? Like I think like even someone like Rose Kennedy, I don't know how many of you know like the exact story with her. She was a very kind of strong woman who had mental illness, and in the 60s I believe she was lobotomized and it went poorly and she was severely mentally impacted and she lived the rest of her life in an institution. Her family was the Kennedys, like the like royal family of the Democratic Party, and they did this to her. And there's no reason that someone like that needs to be kept away from society. So what I'm talking about is like people who are severely impacted and need a high level of care cannot be kept away from the rest of us, even if they need a high level of care.
In
I would.
fact, the
I
healing
think
process occurs when start to be around more people who are typical.
But they're not going to be healed is
yeah,
my
some
point,
people can't be
right?
healed.
Some
No,
people
because
cannot be healed.
Yeah,
no
it's
the
true. Some
only
people
the
are never
only
going to make 100%
yeah
progress.
there's some
There's some people who are
individuals,
never
but
going to be even 50%.
how
Even
many
50% of
people
what they
are
used to be.
how many people do we know are like that where they just can't be healed? And if it's very few.
So many. So
Yeah,
many,
because
Oh, hold on, but to be
there's
clear,
so no
like
no no
as
no
you
no
were
no no
talking
no
about the edge
no no
cases,
no
we're
no no
not
no.
talking
Let
about
me
put
respond to
Wait,
that first,
what's
BB.
the
The
bar?
only reason why there's so many is because the problem has been so ignored and exacerbated that the number has grown. But
Not even that though. In some cases, some
in
people just aren't
reality,
receptive, right?
okay, yeah, true. But yeah, if they were receptive, and we need to start thinking about and discussing the processes of them becoming receptive to the healing process. In
Let's
Okay, but
reality,
again, as a
I'm just trying to finish. Jeez,
sure.
whiz. In reality, those individuals are few and far in between. It's just
Oh,
that
fair enough.
over time, the number grows because it's ignored.
Okay, so
They're
as
not
a
few and
so
far
the
between, but okay.
Well,
no,
Doobie, I'm going to let you go, but Drowsy did ask a question, and I'm curious your answer. What is your bar for this? So we mentioned like super severe autism, right? Would that be a spot where you would draw the line where they're because one okay, if indulge me, okay? So one of the problems I've seen with mental illness is we let the people who suffer the least from it be the face of it. So for
Hmm.
autism, it's always highly functioning autists that we see that are the face of it. But that's only a portion of it. We don't see we don't see the people who have very severe levels of these diseases that cannot interact like the high functioning people can. They suffer it to a level that is far above and beyond that we would not recognize it today as autism. We would think it's something else, but it is. It's a severe form of it. And we do this ooification of mental illness, right? Where it's cute and oh, we're just quirky, right? We got this quirky trait that like we have and it's just part of our personality. Ooh woo. Um, that's not what we're talking about, right? We're talking about the people who have severe. So, to Doobie, where is your line here? Where is you'd say this is the like this is a spot where we're just gonna remove you, right?
so for actual like permanent institutionalization, I would say that they're like a permanent danger to themselves and others, i.e., I've been mentioning people like that think the walls are talking to them and screaming at them. That is something that actually happens to some people, right? They think items are talking to them. They think that people are saying things to them that they aren't. They, think they see people as like demons. They have crazy, fucking scary delusions, right? So those people, I think that that's like a. I'm not when I say that they should be like held permanently. I don't mean that like you just like lock them away and never and throw away the key. I mean you give them treatment and look for ways to help them. And if the only way to help them right now is to keep them there and to keep them fed, housed, try to provide them with some kind of community, some kind of entertainment, so that they're able to live as happy a life as possible and not end up on the street killing themselves or others, then that's what you do, right? And through the entire process, you're trying to find a way to treat them. You're trying to find a way to help them.
You got it. You nailed it
But
there, Doobie.
I think that wait, one second.
If it's the
I think
only.
the issue, well, I would say them, but also people that like Wick mentioned, like someone who's like severely autistic. Yeah, there. I think there's obviously like a case for people putting people like that in permanent housing, but it wouldn't be the same kind of permanent housing, right? They would be like another place with other people who aren't a danger to themselves or others, where they just need someone to make sure that they're eating, make sure that they're taking a shower, make sure that they're clothed, et cetera, et cetera. And I think yeah, that's totally fine. Put them somewhere permanent. If their family can't take care of them, it's too much to strain on the family. Give the family somewhere they can come visit their loved one whenever they want, in a place where they know that they're safe and they're taken care of. That's totally reasonable. I think that the issue that that's been plaguing this conversation, one of the issues, is that we're like mixing up like people who are like slow, like Rose Kennedy. She was like slow and like retarded or whatever. Like that was a word back then. So they lobotomized her, which is obviously ridiculous, right? And we're mixing them up with like people who are like ADHD or like anxious or like having a suicidal moment or bipolar, whatever. We're not talking about those people. Those people are obviously like more common. When we're talking about like putting people in forced institutions, where they're going to get mandatory care that they can't opt out of, we are talking about the edge cases. But there are a lot of those edge cases, and right now
I
they
wanna
typically end up on the street because their families can't
I
take care
want to
of them.
speak to that because I think we underestimate the number. So according to the
Yeah.
CDC, okay, according to the CDC, seriously mental ill people, and this includes people with like severe schizophrenia, some cases of PTSD, psychosis, severe bipolar disorder, etc. They make up 5% of the population. 5%, that's a lot, gang. So that means in my chat right now, at least 3 of y'all, right? At
Yeah.
least 3 of y'all, right? I know that's not how statistics work, but you know what I'm saying? There's a this is a significant portion. These aren't just
Right.
onesies and twosies. There are more of those people than there are of 5% is a lot. I just want
There are
to.
more of those people than there are the trans people that we hear about so much, right? Like that's just the
Mhm.
reality. And some of them are probably trans, if we're being honest. However,
Oh
um,
God.
I think that so that's important, but I think that even among that group of people, right, just like super clear, a lot of schizophrenia is treatable, right? They have medication now that people take, and they take it, and they live totally normal lives or somewhat as normal lives as possible on this medication that definitely helps them, even if it's not perfect. Even if it makes them feel numb, or I know that a lot of people report or like suicidal. There are a lot of cases where people are negatively impacted by the medication, but there are a lot of cases where they're like success stories, right? So what we're talking about when we're talking about like mandatory long-term institutionalization is the edge cases, right? Is people who can't handle being out on their own because they're going to end up on the street, and they're going to end up hurting themselves or other people.
I
I
wanna
just want to mention
go
something
ahead.
about Rose Kennedy. So yes, her end state of life was very much an outlier. Like having a lobotomy is like really major. But the way she ended up like that was that she exhibited some symptoms of bipolar. So what was done to her? They had someone with bipolar who was kind of an erratic personality and a very like independent person, and they were thinking, what do we do with her? That's how she got
Yeah,
lobotomized. Part of the problem of like the way that we have dealt with people who have like what we would call now like less severe mental illness. We used to put them in that position because of the stigma against mental illness. So that's part of what we need to totally reject. Like we need to care for people in a better way so that we don't end up doing that to them.
yeah, but again, that was like 80 years ago before we had medication available to deal with those things.
So
So
just
obviously, like back
It was like
then,
50 years ago.
yeah, I
like
wanna.
no, it
She
was
would
like
still be
So
80.
alive
I don't want to
probably.
move off this. I
She
wanna
died
actually engage
in
with this.
2005.
I want to engage with this. Rebecca, do you think that it was an inappropriate question to ask? Should we not ask when we come to these people who have severe mental issues, what do we do with them? Do you think that's an entirely unfair question to ask?
No.
Okay.
Wick,
Does,
what's the
Ozzy,
bar
go ahead.
though? I think this that people just keep using this broad thing. Like, what is the bar? I'm okay with some people being in a facility forever, but it's a very small percentage of the people that I think that even you're talking about. These are people that would that are consistently with medication a danger to themselves and others. The medication is mainly to make them subduable so that they're not hurting anybody, including themselves. If you have somebody who wants to constantly kill everybody, and the meds aren't working or anything, what else can we do? This is us exhausting
Right.
every other option to ensure that this person had a good shot at being able to be a part of society. Unfortunately, the same thing with like the criminal justice system. Some people we have to remove, but I'd say it has to be when we have to. We have
Right.
to.
Yeah. We can't
Uh,
just get tired of dealing with them and then
no,
throw
but
them
the
away.
situation that I'm talking about is specifically not just that. Like we're talking about people who are barely fun, like barely, present when they're on medication. Maybe they're not violent when they're on medication, but if they're outside of the institution, they're going to stop taking their medication. They're going to have nowhere to go, and then when they stop taking their medication, they will be more likely to be violent, right? And even when they're on their medication, it's not like they can hold down a job. It's not like they can take care of themselves in a proper way. It's not like they can choose dietary options for themselves that are going to be good for them, right? And in those cases, like in that case, that person is not even violent when they're on medication. But there is, unless the family has the resource to take them in, and often cases they don't, there's no other place for them to go except for a long-term care facility. And I'm not advocating. I think Doobie and I are not advocating for lobotomies. We're not advocating for old medicine, outdated medicine that was frankly horrible. We are advocating for long-term care facilities for people to be taken care of by professionals who know how to take care of them and will give them the proper respect and treatment that they need.
Infallible Al for $5, and then I'll let you go, Eldrazi. For $5, this is also an interesting statement. What this creates in practice is people being afraid to get help for fear of losing their freedom. It already happens with crisis hotlines. So what do we say to that, Doobie and Stardust? This forced institutionalization would make it so that less people seek help because they're afraid that they're going to go to the crazy bin or the loony bin, right?
I mean, it's not
I
like
think
we're advocating for the like average person to be institutionalized either, right? But what we are advocating for is like for there to be facilities where people who don't have families that have the resources to take care of them can go, and be taken care of and be kept, on track, and have a routine, and for other people, like short-term care facilities are just fine, or halfway houses or things like that. I don't know what
Mm.
Doobie's gonna say, so go ahead,
Doobie,
Doobie.
go ahead.
I think that I think what was it, Azzy? Or I think yeah, it was Drazzy that touched on this. We need to remove the stigma, right? I think this idea that if you get put into a mental hospital, they're just gonna lock you away and lobotomize you and fucking spray you with cold water because that's what happened 200 years ago. um, is like it's part of the issue, right? I think that we need to let people know that hey, it is okay to have mental health problems, right? It is okay to come forward and get help, and there are resources, and people want to help you because bare minimum, the government, as fucked up as it is, wants you to generate money, wants you to generate widgets and shit. So they want you to be a functioning member of society. They want you to pay taxes, right? So there will be ways, hopefully, I think there are some now, but hopefully more in the future, for you to come forward, get the help you need, and if that means you need to go into the hospital sometimes because you're sick, that's okay. That's what you do when you're sick. You go to the hospital for a while, you get better, and then you get out. And if that means you need to stay in there for a month, well, shit, that's what you do when you're sick. You go to the hospital, you stay there until you're better, and you get out. I think removing that stigma is extremely important.
Oh, same question, but with a different spin, right? Because I think Doobie mentioned this to Drazi and to Rebecca and to Azzy. Do you not think that your rhetoric of painting all these institutions as places of abuse that are rife with corruption that someone could never escape is also preventing people from seeking help that would otherwise benefit from being in such a facility, at least for a short time, by painting it as something that is a black hole that you can never escape? Do you not think that you're doing some harm there in preventing people from making people too scared to actually seek out an institution that would otherwise help them? Go ahead.
No, I advocate for short-term care facilities. I think Rebecca made a great point when she talked about putting time and distance between the event that causes you to go there. I think short-term care facilities are fantastic for getting people on medication when they don't have the choice to not take it, and then after they have been in the correct state of mind is when they would be say, okay, you've been here, you're medicated, you're doing good, and we're going to release you. We're going to release you contingent on this plan here that you're going to meet with the worker that we've assigned you, and provide you the necessary resources you need to not end up back here. This is one of the things I keep trying to point out too, is that I'm all for the state providing additional resources to help these people. Like if they go to the family can you can give them the resources necessary so that they're not an additional burden that the family's not going to reject. I don't think anything that I'm saying is trying to keep people from seeking mental health treatment. I'm trying to keep the scary black hole option off the table, so that way that the options that are available to them are not scary and they're not terrible.
For $5.50 in Canadian money, Testicle Johnson says, interesting discussion. Question for the panel. What if we perhaps cover them in leeches to get the demons out of them?
It's a
Fair.
good
Well,
idea,
you don't
actually,
need.
from Testicle Johnson, so I
Mm.
appreciate that.
Yeah,
And just real quick, gang, hey, if you're liking this content, if you're enjoying what we're doing, and if you have questions for the show, donate some money. Throw some bits, throw some subs, super chat, like and subscribe if you're on YouTube, if you're on Twitch, follow the channel. Throw me your Prime sub if you got it. Look, I can't do this for free. So if you want us to have a robust discussion, you're going to need to fund it, gang. Give me money. Okay, carry on.
Yeah,
Azzy.
like to the question. I know it's joking, but essentially is what I've been alluding to. You can't medicate the demons away. You can medicate the external application is just a mitigation to the problem, but for a whole holistic healing for the therapy so that they're not in an institution for years on end. See, like I'm not advocating for just like I'm not just trying to play both sides. I understand that if they get healed, they need to be in the institution as long as they need to be, not not any more than that. We often see that people end up in the institution longer than they need to be because things aren't properly applied, and we're trying to medicate issues away, which would probably be healed over, with some therapy, with some, proper diet, with some communicate, with some, personal verbal therapy, with prayer. Pray the demons out. You don't medicate the demons out. But
Azzy,
if you're not going to use those tools, then yeah, people are going to end up in the institution longer than they need to be.
Azzy, Testicle Johnson was obviously saying that to troll me because he saw my stream about my
Yeah, I
leech
know it's
play
a joke.
fetish. So
Yeah, I know it's a joke, but
was very
that's what I was
targeted.
trying to. Yeah, but I only said that because
Azzy,
people are
you
saying
keep...
I was the third
Okay.
option, where I was against you and Rebecca about short-term and long-term
One,
institutionalization.
okay.
Go ahead, Whick.
One of the things that's frustrating me about you in your conversation here is you keep saying that medication isn't going to work forever and it
It's
isn't
not.
going to work. I think you're wrong. I think medication absolutely works in a
It's a
lot of
huge part
cases.
of
It's not
it.
every.
Yeah, it's a huge part
And
of
All
by
right,
it.
so
working, and just let me finish. By working, I don't mean they eventually get off of it. No. I meaning when they're on it and as they continue to get on it, and they'll probably be on it for the rest of their lives, it works. But this is the thing. Doobie talked about removing stigma. We need to remove that stigma. Being on medication for the rest of your life should not be stigmatized to the degree it is. Because
are you
again, a lot of
saying
the
I'm stick?
reasons, a lot
Wick
of
is
the
right. I'll be on these for the rest of my life, and I'm
a lot
happy
of
to take
yeah,
them.
a lot of the reasons, right, that these people have who have severe paranoia and psychosis and delusions don't want to take the medication is because of the cultural stigma against the medication. They like, well, they see. Look, one of the worst things that ever happened to my uncle is he saw Inception. Okay, so now he thinks that he's living in a dream, and that broke him in his mind in a real way. Um, it became unmanageable because he saw it as some kind of this gospel truth thing. It was a problem. Um, but when we treat like when they hear these things or see these stories or see these kind of stigmas get put into the world, they believe it, they internalize it, and when they do it, it's different than when you or I do it. It becomes a problem. And thank you for the subscription, Feder Methodist. Earlier, YOLO Bowling Stuff gave a gift sub, a few other gift subs. Gang, keep going. We're trying to get 25 more, right? Or 24 more now, so I can meet my goal. I know it's a lot, but I do need the money, so thank you. $5 from Times and Wine to say Testicle Johnson is wrong. You only need some Coke for the ghosts in your blood. Fair enough. I want to toss it to you, Azzy, and then see your response, and then we'll continue. Oh,
Yeah,
and then
because
Stardust.
it's not me stigmatizing it. If you think I'm stigmatizing it, then I would feel like you're not being charitable to what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, if you want healing, it's gonna take more. So if the problem goes away completely, now I granted, yeah, there are some people whose problems are just so bad that they will never go away, and that they're going to need that medication for the rest of their lives. Yes, but I'm trying to propose that there are individuals who are going to institutions because if it's short-term care, that means they're being healed.
No, they
Which
come out with the
No,
meds though.
not.
They come out with
They
a
come out with the
prescription.
meds and they continue to take the medications for the rest of their life. Yes.
Yeah, a lot of
okay,
these
but
Can I
what?
medications are from a chemical
All right,
imbalance
so
in the
then,
brain that the brain's not going to
Rebecca.
continue to produce
Okay.
after they're on it for so long. I'm
I just
not.
want to kind of like, I think part of what you're trying to say, Azzy, is that like medication is one pillar of treatment. It's not going to make healing for somebody. It's not going to entirely fix somebody's life. It's one piece. The other piece might be housing. The other piece might be some form of engagement in the community, some form of like stability in their life. It's going to be one piece. So a lot of the reason that people fall apart and end up in bad places where they're on the bridge, ready to jump, a lot of that is because they have the situation where they need medication, they have some kind of illness, but all of the other pieces are not there for them. So medication isn't going to fix a broken life. I think that's like part of what you're getting at.
I mean, no, that's exactly what I'm getting at. That's exactly what I'm saying. Like, just if you don't have everything else situated, the medication is just uh it's just keeping the symptoms at bay until they appear again. But if you want the
And
symptoms
it may
to
not
go
even
away,
work.
you need
It may
every
not
other
work for
pillars.
you if
Yeah,
those
it
things
may
aren't
not
there.
work. A lot of these medications are experimental, and they're trying them out on people. So
Um,
that's what I meant before. But yeah,
Right,
if you don't have
but
all
part of
the other pillars in place, and yeah,
can
yeah,
I?
sure. I
I'm
agree
gonna have
with
to
you,
go
but
somewhere. Yeah.
part of the issue with this, the way that hear that you're talking about it, people will say, oh, like these medications have side effects, but by far these side
I didn't
effects
say that.
are not nearly as bad as as the mental illness itself, right?
But that's not what I'm
And
saying,
well,
Stardust.
I know that's not what you're saying, but let me finish what I'm saying. Yeah, like one thing that I do have an issue with what you're saying is that it's still not focusing on the fact that one of the biggest obstacles to deal with when it comes to somebody who's very mentally ill or even just moderately mentally ill is that they want to stop taking their medications. A lot of the time, it is built into the
I already
illness.
addressed this before.
Okay.
Well, no, I'm just reiterating. I'm reiterating again that we need to have this. We need to have this. You're saying the experimental or whatever, that we need to have this attitude towards medication, that it is not, I'm sorry, but it's for
No,
most
I said a
people,
lot more
it's
than.
not
Okay.
optional. For most people, it is not optional.
Okay.
It's something you have to take for the rest
Can
of
I
your life.
respond real quickly? With
Well, actually, we're kind of running out of time, and I want to respect everyone's time here. So what we're gonna do now, okay, is we're gonna end the panel proper. I'm gonna give everyone here a chance to shout themselves out, to give a closing thoughts, since you can respond in your closing thoughts, right? And if we can get, let's say, 5 gift subs by the time they're done, I'll open it up and we'll carry on, and they can stay if they'd like, or if they need to go, they can go. If we can't get that, though, we'll just close it out. So that's the deal. 5 gift subs in chat by the time they're done, or we're just gonna close it out. Up to you, gang. Let's go first to, well, let's let Azzy close us out first. So Azzy, go ahead, and then
okay,
we'll
so
just go around the room.
to quickly deal with Stardust's issue with my talking points, she's deconstructing what I'm saying. She's not putting everything together in totality of what I said so far. I said we can still give them the medication, but give them in a smaller dose where they still feel like themselves. Some people take this medication where they feel like, oh, I can't think, I don't have my feelings, I don't have my emotions, I don't feel like myself anymore taking this medication. You can still give them medication, and maybe the treatment will be longer in the smaller dose, but at least they're still taking their medication, they're still getting the help they need. If they're prescribed more, then yeah, if they need more, they need more. It is what it is. My name is Azariah, aka Azzy Om, from Calm Kingdom on YouTube, TikTok, and Twitter. It's not Twitch right now. I changed my name because weirdos were DMing me. But it should be back to where it should be in a couple days. I think like 5. Appreciate you, Wick. You follow through, my man. Shout out to you, man.
Okay. Well, thank you for being here. Always appreciate you. And I'll stop DMing you if you're worried about the weirdos DMing. I apologize.
Nah, man, you're good. You're my weirdo,
Okay.
Wick.
Fair enough. Doobie, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Doobie. Thanks for having me. That's it.
Beautiful. Okay, Eldrazi, go ahead.
Um, I think. Oh, my biggest frustration throughout this whole panel is it seems like I made a lot of points that were not engaged with. I think that if you If you're in favor of these institutions, I think it's really important to look at the reason why you're in favor of them. If it's for financial reasons, I think that you probably have your priorities improperly aligned. Um, Otherwise, I'm Elderdrazi. You can find me on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube. I tried to stream this on politics, but their website isn't functioning correctly for me yet. But I'll be restreaming over to that as well in the near future if it stops being broken.
Well, thank you for being here. Sorry you felt frustrated, and maybe if people donate and we get into the open, maybe someone else will address it. But for now, let's go to Rebecca, please.
My name is Rebecca Christensen. I am at Rebecca right now on Twitter. And if you want to read some gay romance novels, you can look me up with the same name on Wattpad. This was really fun. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for being here, and hopefully this won't be your last appearance. I'm glad you enjoyed it and glad you had fun. Thank you for being here. $5 from Brat to say, to the guy who said you can't medicate the demons away, you can't medicate diabetes away either. It's chronic, but medication still benefits diabetics. Thank you for the $5. Please continue to give me money. Stardust, please.
Okay, so I still have a problem with what Azzy is saying, right? This whole idea that people won't take medication because they feel like they're not themselves. That is also part of the stigma. Yes, there are some cases where people will feel like medication is it is making them feel a little bit different. There are cases where people will find medication has some side effects, but for the whole thing about zombified, oh, I feel like a zombie, that is part of a larger stigma that we should not be encouraging and we should not be putting out into the world. He also said another thing about how a lot of these drugs are experimental. No, they're fucking not. The drugs that they put people on for mental illness usually have years of clinical trials behind them. Thirdly, I know that everybody has this idea of institutionalization and what it used to be, right? But guess what? They're not lobotomizing people anymore. They're not they're not mental institutions are not what they used to be. You can look it up. I linked an article in the group chat for you guys if you want to take a look at what mental institutions are like today. Also, I linked an article that is basically it's a study. It's a small study, but it shows that in conclusion, long-term compulsory treatment appeared to have helped improve clinical and functional outcomes in a substantial proportion of previously severely dysfunctional, treatment resistant, dual diagnosis patients who could then be discharged to a less restrictive and less supportive environment. And that was like 42%. And then there's a small portion where they had more oppositional behavior and needed a higher level care facility. But that there are studies that show that these long-term treatment centers are helpful for people, can put them on the right track, can discharge them when necessary, and put them on the road to success.
Well, thank you for being here, Stardust. Really appreciate you. And appreciate you, Feder Methodist, for the 300 bits. Glad you're here. Gang, we unfortunately didn't make the 5 gift subs, but that's okay, right? That's okay. Tomorrow, we are going to have, I will be moderating a one-on-one debate between Chris Speaks and a man by the name of Zenku, who was on my show last week, right? And we're going to be arguing which is better for the modern man, the red pill or the blue pill. And we'll see how that goes. So tune in tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern, for that. Gang, if you like the content, like and subscribe if you're on YouTube. We're going to rate out. Is anyone here streaming?
I'm about to end.
Okay. Stardust, you're going to keep streaming after this, or are you done?
I'll probably be on for a few more hours. So.
Okay, I'll send them over to you, Stardust. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for rating. I really appreciate it. Is there anybody else here? Because there's some smaller streamers on this panel.
That's what I asked,
I'm
right?
I'm gonna be on Prime's panel.
Are you streaming?
Broke up, he said.
Hello?
Okay.
I guess not.
Fair enough. So
You guys
no
should
one
watch
else...
that tomorrow. Chris Speaks is hella based. It'll be
yeah,
really
well,
good.
we'll see how he does against Zenku. Zenku's a pretty big YouTuber.
I don't know Zenku, but Chris is a monster.
He has a different, like, what's his name on YouTube? It's Baz4S or something. It's weird. It's like, but he's got like 40,000 subscribers, so we'll see how that goes. Gang, make sure you let Stardust know it is a hate raid, right? Spam those emotes, and we will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
That was definitely one of the most. You didn't interrupt me, Rhonda. You're fine. That was one of the most frustrating panels I've ever been on. There's a. Oh shit. Hang on. There's a temptation to just like do a whole stream where I go over every time I made a point that didn't get addressed at all. It's really impressive. Just I didn't know that Stardust and Doobie were in that good a shape to be able to duck, dodge, and weave every single fucking point I threw at them. Really, really blows my mind. But I think I made a lot of good points that just never really stuck. Wick did a good job of keeping some of them. Nobody even said what the bar was for keeping people locked up forever. Not one person. I laid out a bar, and nobody else laid it out. Well, I guess that's all I really want to say before I go. I'm a little exhausted from my car stuff and getting electrocuted still. It's been very worn out since then. So I'm going to get out of here. Tomorrow, Friday React stream, 6:30 to 9, featuring my, we might as well just call Beats the co-host. My co-host, Beats the Heart Lyrics of the Soul. Good night, everybody. Have a good one.